Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku was chosen by Gilgamesh? Movie. This story is El Príncipe héroe by JoseAlbertoOvandoEsc. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button, as your one like motivates me to bring more stories, and subscribe the channel if you are new so you won't miss our latest videos. Third person point of view. It was early in the morning, the birds were singing, the sun was shining, and people were getting up to start the day. In a room bathed in sunlight, we see a young man with green hair waking up groggy. His blonde sister is still asleep in her bed. The room they're in is quite spacious, large enough to accommodate both their beds and some other furniture. Yawn. Huh. Oh, Izumi, wake up. It's today. It's today. Izumi. Izuku. Izuku. Our quirk test is today. Izumi. Pants. Oh really? I almost forgot. We need to wake up mom and dad. The two siblings, now identified as Izuku and Izumi, quickly left their shared room. Once outside, they headed to their parents' bedroom door and opened it. Izumi. Mom and dad, wake up. Izuku. It's our quirk test today. Once they opened the door, they were greeted by the sight of the master bedroom. It was quite spacious and, like Izuku and Izumi's room, fully furnished with rugs, drawers, a wardrobe, and a large double bed. The first to sit down, back straight, was a man with long blonde hair and a skeletal build. Beside him was a slender woman with green hair who began to speak. Izuku. Izumi, what are you doing here so early in the morning? Both. It's our quirk test. Today. Huh. Oh, well, then you'd better get ready because you don't want to be late. Izuku. Okay, Dad. Let's get changed. Izumi. Izumi nodded quickly as they went out the door to change out of their pajamas. I'll go ahead and prepare breakfast, Toshinori. Toshinori. All right, Inko, a light breakfast will do. Inko nodded and went to the bathroom to freshen up. Toshinori got up to check on his children when suddenly, ring, ring. His cell phone rang as if someone were calling him. Toshinori got up and picked up the phone to check who was calling, but he was surprised to see that the caller was one of his cronies. Toshinori. Hola, I'm sorry to call you so early in the morning, sir. But there's an emergency, we need you here, All Might. Toshinori. All right, I'm on my way. Toshinori hung up immediately and went to the kitchen where Inko was preparing a light breakfast. Meanwhile, his children were talking to her about what kind of quirks they could get. Toshinori. I'm sorry, but I have to go to work, kids. Toshinori spoke with a touch of urgency and disappointment at not being able to come with his children. Fortunately, Inko quickly understood the situation and nodded, indicating that he should leave. Izumi. Oh, man. Pouts. Izuku. Okay, Dad. We'll tell you about our quirks when we get home. Izuku didn't complain about his stepfather's work because he understood how important it was. He always had a good grasp of his surroundings. Although Izumi also knew the importance of work, she couldn't help but complain. Toshinori. Laughs. Sorry, guys, but I have to go. Duty calls. He said this while kissing their foreheads and heading outside, immediately going into his buff form, making sure no one saw him, and leaping towards the emergency. Inko. Okay, let's start breakfast and go to the doctor. Doctor. So, what would you like to hear, the good news or the bad news? Inko. Bad news, please. Inko stammered, fearing there might be something wrong with one of her children. Both Izuku and Izumi were visibly nervous as they clutched the All Might and Green Tempest toys tightly. Doctor sighs. Well, unfortunately, your son Izuku Yagi is fine, quirkless. As he said that, the room fell into a deafening silence for a few seconds, which was broken by Izuku dropping his All Might toy. Izuku. QQ, no peculiarities. You're joking, right? He thought as tears began to well up. The doctor was simply looking at him with pity, while his mother looked at him with a mixture of sadness, pity, and above all, disappointment. Once Izumi processed the situation, he quickly stood up and gave her the hug she desperately needed. Inko. So doctor, what's the good news? Doctor. Clears throat. Well, your daughter, Izumi Yagi, has a telekinetic quirk. Her strength, once trained, will be comparable to that of Green Tempest, the number 31 pro hero. Inko. Did you hear that, Izumi? You have such a great quirk. You'll become the #1 hero. Inko spoke with an expression that contrasted sharply with the one she had given Izuku earlier. Izumi, who was still comforting Izuku, had an expression as bright as the sun, but that didn't stop her from continuing to hug him. Inko. Come on, Izumi. Let's go to the car. Izumi nodded as she left, holding Izuku's hand and telling him that everything was going to be alright. Izuku. Sobs, thank you, Izumi, you're the best sister in the world. It was a new morning, the day after the peculiar test. We see Izuku and Izumi walking to school with Inko, who was only holding Izumi's hand. Izumi noticed this, so she approached her brother and took his left hand in her right, giving him a big smile. Izuku smiled back. It was a day after the peculiar test. During the trip home, Inko was only talking to Izumi and didn't bother to include Izuku in the conversation. When they met Toshinori, who was home from work, he had encountered a new vigilante who single-handedly defeated an entire villain organization. The vigilante was a well-built blonde man dressed in casual attire. That was all the information the police were able to gather, as no one got a good look at him. When All Might arrived at the scene, he found the entire villainous organization dead and the vigilante missing. Back with Izuku, it was now recess time, and he went under a tree and started eating his lunch. Izumi was walking toward the playground to eat her snacks with Izuku when she was greeted by a group of 4. Hola, Izumi. Izumi. Hello, Katsuki, Katsumi, Shoto, Shoka. Izumi responded to the 2 sets of twins in a cheerful tone. One pair of twins, Katsuki and Katsumi, have short, spiky, sandy blonde hair with choppy bangs that hang over their eyebrows. Their eyes are sharp and bright red. The other pair of twins have fairly long hair, though it doesn't reach their necks, and they wear bangs parted twice so as not to obstruct their vision. Their hair is evenly divided between 2 colors. Shoto has white on the right side and crimson red on the left, while Shoka's hair is crimson red on his right side and white on his left. Both have heterochromia iridium, which makes their eyes appear turquoise and dark brownish gray. Shoto. Where is Izuku? Izumi. Oh, he's eating over there under the big tree in the playground. Katsumi. Why is he eating alone? Izumi. Well, he's probably upset about yesterday. Katsuki. Oh, yeah, that reminds me you guys had your quirk tests yesterday, right? Izumi. Yes, we did it. I have a very strong telekinesis quirk that might be stronger than Green Tempest's. Shoka. What's wrong with Izuku? What's his quirk? Izumi. Well, that's it, he's peculiar. Izumi. I'm worried that he still wants to be a hero, sobs and hurts himself doing it. The 2 sets of twins understood the situation now. The conversation paused for a minute so they could think about what to do. After a minute of silence, it was broken when Katsuki suggested an idea while smiling. Katsuki. What if we intimidate him so that he's so afraid of quirks and getting hurt that he doesn't want to be a hero anymore? Katsumi. Yes, I was thinking the same thing. After saying that, Izumi and the Todoroki twins immediately had expressions that were a mixture of anger, disappointment, and bewilderment. Shoto. What the hell are you thinking? Shoka. We should protect him, not try to intimidate him. Katsumi. You simply don't understand our idea. Katsuki. He needs to learn that he can't get far in life and that he's useless. Shoto. Inutile. Deja de bromir con Katsuki. Shoka. Just because he's not quirkless doesn't mean he's useless. After a few minutes of arguing and shouting, Izumi decided to stop them. Izumi. Solo, Katsumi. When Izumi said that, it caught Izuku's attention because he recognized his sister's voice, so he went over to see what was happening. When he got to where Izumi was, he was surprised to see her friends arguing and shouting at each other. He was currently hiding behind a corner, about to go and stop them, but Izumi stopped him by shouting again. Izumi. We shouldn't have to intimidate him just because he's quirkless. Izumi. Sobs. I'm with Shoto and Shoka in this. As their sister, I'll do everything in my power to protect them. Izumi spoke with power and determination in her voice. Shoto and Shoka had smiles on their faces because of Izumi's response. While Katsuki and Katsumi simply wore annoyed and angry expressions. Katsuki. TCH. Whatever. Katsumi. Let's go find that nerd. Katsumi nodded and ran off with his brother to find Izuku. Izumi, Shoto, and Shoka quickly ran after them. Upon hearing this, Izuku tried to run away, but Katsuki stopped him and quickly found him. Katsuki. Hey, Izuku. Do you still want to be a hero? Izuku. Trembling, why yes Katsuki, it's been my dream for a long time. When Katsuki and Katsumi heard this, sadistic smiles spread across their faces. Katsuki then tried to use his quirk to explode his face, but was stopped by an invisible force. Izumi. Basta, Katsuki. Katsumi. Growls, why you? Katsumi then tried to use his quirk on Izumi to allow Katsuki to move freely again. However, he too stopped when ice covered his feet and the air around him cooled, preventing Katsumi from secreting his nitroglycerin sweat. Shoto. They're crazy. Izuku. Why is this happening? Thus began the story of the one who would be known as the zenith of humanity, Izuku. Third-person point of view. Let's rewind the clock to see what the emergency was that required All Might's attention on the morning of Izuku and Izumi's peculiar test. It was early morning when we saw a very handsome blonde man with crimson, blood-red eyes. He was currently in a very luxurious suite. It was decorated with expensive, high-quality furniture. Most of the pieces had gilded trim and were made of the finest wood. The building where he and another person were staying was located in Musudafu, Japan. The man yawned, got out of his luxurious bed, and went to the bathroom to freshen up. After he finished, he went to the living room and turned on the television. Once he was seated, he opened a golden portal, and a golden pitcher and goblet appeared. He poured the finest wine into his goblet and began to drink while watching television. After about 10 minutes, his roommate, having freshened up in the bathroom, came out and greeted the man with a small smile. She looked like a young girl in her early teens, with blonde hair and green eyes. Good morning, Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh. Good morning to you too, Artoria. Let us have breakfast, okay. The girl, who now identified herself as Artoria, nodded in response. Gilgamesh then set down his wine cup and placed it back in his treasury with the pitcher. He went to the dining table with Artoria and opened his portals once more, and out came a lavish meal, enough to be considered a feast. Artoria. Your noble phantasm is certainly convenient. Gilgamesh. Haven't you gotten used to seeing this every day for the past month? Gilgamesh responded with a smile as he sat down at the long table. Artoria did the same and began to eat the delicious food Gilgamesh had provided. You must be wondering how exactly the King of Knights and the King of Heroes lived together in Musudafu, Japan. So, the gist is that after Emiya Kuritsugu, Artoria's former master, ordered her to destroy the Holy Grail during the Fourth Holy Grail War, she and Gilgamesh were transported to the world of quirks, heroes, and villains. The reason Artoria and Gilgamesh could still exist in that world was that before being transported, they were bathed in the Holy Grail's excess mana. When they arrived in this world, they knew nothing about it. Eventually, they found each other and decided to stay together to work out their situation. At first, their interactions consisted of Gilgamesh's orders and arrogant remarks, to which Artoria simply responded with sneers, glares, and retorts. However, after living together for the past month, they finally grew fond of each other. They were able to afford the luxurious suite because Gilgamesh sold some of his jewels. Gilgamesh. So, Artoria, are you going to become the so-called hero? Artoria. Yes, I am. Artoria responded immediately, her voice filled with courage and determination. Gilgamesh. I see. However, the mana we absorbed from the Holy Grail will not last forever. Which means that, eventually, we must leave this world and return to being heroic spirits. Artoria. I understand where you come from, Gilgamesh, but even if our time here is limited, I still want to make an impact and help as many people as I can. Gilgamesh. Laughs, you still haven't changed, huh? After finishing their breakfast, Artoria and Gilgamesh got up to change their clothes. Artoria wore a long-sleeved white shirt with a royal blue skirt that fell below her knees and blue sneakers. Gilgamesh wore a white V-neck shirt with a black jacket with white stripes and black pants. Artoria's hair was tied back in a ponytail, while Gilgamesh's was loose. Artoria. Well, I'm going to register for the hero license exam. Where are you going, Gilgamesh? I'll be wandering around the city to find something interesting. Artoria. Okay, well, be careful. Gilgamesh. Don't worry, my love. You and I both know that nobody. It can hurt me. After hearing what Gilgamesh said, Artoria blushed slightly and glared at him. Artoria. Don't call me that. We're not even in a relationship. However, Gilgamesh thought that was very cute. He looked at her and she was making a little pout. Gilgamesh. Sighs, well, it's only a matter of time. Artoria. What the hell does that mean? Gilgamesh. It means that very soon you will fall under my spell. Gilgamesh answered as if it were a fact. Artoria could only grunt in response as she and Gilgamesh left the building where they were staying. What greeted them as they stepped outside were the beautiful streets of Musudafu and the morning sky. It was still very early, as people were just beginning to stir from their sleep. Artoria. Well, I'll see you later, Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh. Yes, goodbye, Artoria. As they said their goodbyes, Gilgamesh began to explore the city a little more. Eventually, he arrived at the shopping center where he saw the owners and employees opening their respective shops. Gilgamesh. Perhaps she should receive a gift when Artoria gets her hero license. Gilgamesh. Sighs, I keep saying that I'm the one she's going to love, but it's the complete opposite. Gilgamesh thought with a weary expression. When he and Artoria arrived in this world, he thought it was a good opportunity to make Artoria his wife. However, he hadn't actually expected to grow fond of her. At first, he simply admired her for having the stubbornness to try to achieve something that was never meant for a human. When they came into this world, that admiration turned into love. Yes, love. He loved everything about her. Her beautiful green eyes, her silky smooth blonde hair, and her lovely, perfect face and body. After Enkidu's death, he no longer expected to see anyone as an equal, much less love. Gilgamesh, too, hadn't expected such a small, fragile body to wield the legendary Excalibur. Scream, help me. Gilgamesh was wandering through the city after leaving the shopping mall when he heard a sudden scream from what sounded like a woman. The sudden cry for help piqued his interest, so he decided to head in the direction of the scream. There, in a dark and dirty alley, Gilgamesh arrived at the scene. The sight that greeted him was a group of low-class villains, about 6 in number. The woman who screamed was pinned to a wall, unconscious, by one of the villains, who was holding her by the neck with one arm. Gilgamesh. What the hell is going on here? Huh, who the hell are you? Growls. Go to hell, pretty boy. Wait, we can't let him go now that he's seen us, can we? Laughs. Do you hear that, cute boy? We're going to teach you a. The villain was immediately cut down by a spear that pierced his chest, causing him to crash against a nearby wall, dead. His friends wore expressions of shock, anger, and fear. They were about to shout at their friend's killer, but were interrupted by that same person. Gilgamesh. You half-breeds don't even have the right to look me in the eye. Yet you dare to threaten me. Gilgamesh said as he opened the gates of Babylon wider. Needless to say, he had a very angry expression. Pants, why you idiot. We're going to make you pay. After those words left the villain's mouth, he was pierced by a sword that struck his right shoulder, pinning him to a wall. The next villain attempted to attack Gilgamesh using his fire quirk, but failed when he was killed before he could even activate it. 2 of the villains attempted to attack him simultaneously using a combination of water and electricity, but Gilgamesh swiftly leapt away before the electrified water could reach him. Before he hit the ground, Gilgamesh fired an axe and a sword at the 2 villains, killing them instantly. The final villain, who had a strength-enhancing quirk, knew he didn't stand a chance as he tried to escape. Gilgamesh. You dare turn your back on me. As soon as he said that, the villain was beheaded with an axe. After the battle ended, Gilgamesh approached the woman and saw that she was still breathing. He looked at the villain who was pinned to the wall by his sword, who began to speak. Ceres, looks like you understood me and my boys pretty well, huh? But when our boss finds out about this, he'll find you and kill you. You're a cute guy with a great quirk, so you must have a wife. So when you die, my boss will take very good care of your wife. Laughs. Gilgamesh listened to the villain with a bored and disinterested expression, but when he mentioned having a woman, he immediately thought of Artoria. He couldn't help but feel fury and bloodlust bubbling in his chest. Then an expression of disgust and rage appeared on his face, thinking of some other man, taking care of his Artoria. When Gilgamesh decided to save the woman, it was because he wanted to relieve some of his boredom. However, now it was personal. Did this man dare threaten him? Needless to say, he wouldn't take that lying down. Gilgamesh trampled the man who was currently bleeding out. He glared at him with a furious and enraged expression. Gilgamesh began to speak with malice and fury. Gilgamesh, where is your half-breed leader? I need to show him the consequences when he can't make his dog stop barking. Gilgamesh arrived at the base of the organization from which the low-class villains originated. It was in an abandoned warehouse near the city center. He walked around the place as if he owned it. Once inside, he saw where all the villains were being held. The sight that greeted him was of the villains sitting on some crates or cheap furniture. The villains were busy making plans and engaging in idle conversation until they heard Gilgamesh forcefully open the doors. Once inside, he immediately scanned the room, which held dozens of villains waiting, their faces showing surprise, concern, and anger, and spoke. Gilgamesh. Hey, you rabid dogs. Where is your leader? Hey Miyamoto, are there any heroes or police outside? Miyamoto laughs, no, there aren't any outside. Although it seems we have an idiot here. The villains were worried their base was compromised when an intruder entered, but all their concerns vanished when one of their colleagues, who possessed a presence detection quirk, reported that there were no heroes or police officers outside. They then looked at Gilgamesh, whose face was etched with anger and impatience. The villains then glanced at their leader, who wore an amused expression upon seeing Gilgamesh. Laughs, looks like some idiot came here for personal revenge. Isn't that right, guys? When he said that, some of the villains burst out laughing when they realized that Gilgamesh had come there just for that. So, what are you here for, huh? To get your stolen money back? Or did someone you knew die? Gilgamesh. I came here because your half-breed leader couldn't keep your dogs on a leash. Whistles. So you fought with some of my guys, huh? But you know where you are, right? As he said, the gates from which Gilgamesh came closed and he was surrounded by dozens of villains. Sighs, it's too early in the morning for this, which worries me that they've found our base. Do this right, guys. All right, boss, this is going to be fun. Gilgamesh. You worms, you think you can beat me? Well, I'd like to see you try. Gilgamesh. I'll make this quick. After all, the woman I saved earlier could have already called the heroes. Third-person point of view. Bip, bip, bip. It was early morning when we see Izuku Yagi, now 14 years old. Getting out of his old bed, he turned off his alarm clock as he headed to the bathroom to freshen up. In the bathroom, he took off his clothes to take a bath. When he took off his clothes, he saw some burn marks inflicted by his former friends, Katsuki and Katsumi, better known at his school as the Bakugo twins. Not only were there burn marks, but there were also some cuts on his arm that were likely self-inflicted. After his bath, he went back to his bed to get ready. Once he finished, he left his room to go to the dining room for breakfast. In the dining room, she saw her sister, Izumi, sitting there, playing with her phone. Meanwhile, her mother, Inko, was preparing breakfast in the kitchen. She didn't see her father, Toshinori, so she assumed he had gone to work. Izuku. Good morning, Izumi. Izumi. Good morning, Izuku. Inko. Izumi returned Izuku's greeting with a cheerful voice and a small smile. Inko, however, didn't notice their exchange as she was focused on cooking. Izumi noticed this and told her mother from the dining room table. Izumi. Mom, Izuku is here. Inko. Oh, good morning, Izuku. Izuku. Good morning to you too, Mom. One could easily tell that Inko's tone as she greeted Izuku showed complete disinterest. Izumi merely sighed in response to her mother's tone. Izuku, on the other hand, was already used to this kind of treatment at home. After Izuku was deemed to have no quirks, his parents began to neglect him. They constantly forgot to include him in their conversations, or only made plans for the three of them during family outings. Izumi had tried her best to fix these problems, but she had always failed since neither Toshinori nor Inko had any interest in interacting with Izuku. Izumi. Seriously, They're always like this, it's so annoying. Izuku. He's still the same as always, huh? Both Izuku and Izumi frowned. After a few minutes of waiting, Inko served them breakfast, which was eggs Benedict. They then began to eat in silence. Once the dishes were washed, Izuku and Izumi left, with Izuku going first. Inko. Have a good day. When Izuku and Izumi arrived at their high school, they saw some very familiar faces walking ahead of them. So they quickened their pace to greet them. Izuku. Good morning, Shoto, Shoka. Izumi. Good morning, guys. Shoto. Good morning, Izuku, Izumi. Shoka. Good morning to both of you. The way Izumi and Shoka greeted other people was always so cheerful and energetic. They both knew their sisters would always be the energetic ones. However, they didn't mind, as it was always nice to see their sisters happy. They started walking towards school, chatting casually amongst themselves. As they walked, some of the students glanced at Izuku with a sneer. However, they quickly looked away when Shoto looked at them. Shoka. Oh, yes. Do you want to know something? Izumi. What is it? Shoto. Pants, Shoka, don't tell me you're going to. Shoka. Okay. Just don't tell our dad we told you this, okay? Izuku. What is it anyway? Axe. Whispers, well. Dad said that the number 3 hero will be retiring soon. Shoka whispered something, and as soon as she said that, shock and bewilderment were evident on Izuku and Izumi's faces. Shoto, on the other hand, just sighed at his sister's gossip. Izuku. What? Izumi. Wait, really? Izumi's scream alerted nearby students and teachers. When Izumi realized what she had done, she quickly covered her mouth and apologized to those around her for yelling. Izumi. Whispers, is the number 3 hero really going to retire soon? I mean, she really made an impact during her time as a hero. Shoka. Yes, unfortunately it is. Shoto and I found out from our father. Izuku. Whoa, to think that the hero knight, Artoria, would retire. Does your father know why? Shoto. No, he doesn't know. He told us that the news caught all the heroes off guard. Shoka. Anyway, see you later, this aloof idiot and I have to get to class. Shoto. Sighs, don't call me that. Be careful with the Bakugo twins, boys. Izumi. Yes, we will. See you guys. Izuku. See you later. The group said their goodbyes with big smiles as the two sets of twins went their separate ways. Classes then continued for the day. It was almost the end of the day, as the last period teacher entered Izuku and Izumi's classroom while holding a stack of papers. Teacher. As juniors, it's time to start thinking seriously about your future and what you want to do with your lives. You could take some career aptitude tests, but why bother? He said as he grabbed the stack of papers on his desk as the entire class began to activate their quirks. Teacher. I know you all want to go to the hero's rink. He said. He threw the stack of papers he was holding into the air, scattering them all over the first row. Then the class began to show its quirks, with a few exceptions. Katsuki. Teach us, don't lump us in with this bunch of losers. We're the real deal, while these guys will be lucky to end up as partners of some arrested D-lister. Ha, Katsuki said, his legs propped up on his desk, gesturing towards him and Katsumi. Both of them wore arrogant smiles on their faces. Student. I can't believe you, Katsuki. Student. Don't be so demanding. Bakugo. Student. Shut up for once, will you? Katsumi. You losers should shut up. Teacher. Oh, yes. Are the Bakugo twins going to attend a high school? As soon as the teacher said that, the shouting at the Bakugo twins stopped. Their classmates' expressions immediately changed from anger to surprise. Student. The national school. Student. Your standardized range score is 79. Student. The competition is crazy. Katsumi. That's why you're all extras. Katsumi said as she and Katsuki got up and stood at their desks with their arrogant smiles still evident on their faces. Katsuki. We passed the mock exams. Katsumi. We're the only ones here qualified for UA. Student. Huh, but what about the Todoroki and Izumi twins? Katsuki. Ha, they won't get far with Deku crushing them. Student. Katsuki's friend. Hey. You're right about Katsuki, that Deku is useless. To explain, after it was revealed that Izuku was not quirkless, the Bakugo twins argued with the Todoroki twins and Izumi about what they should do because Izuku still wanted to be a hero. The Bakugo twins wanted to intimidate him into fearing quirks and giving up on being a hero, but in reality, they truly looked down on him for being quirkless, and the things they said about Izuku were their true thoughts. On the other hand, the Todoroki twins and Izumi wanted to protect him from harm. When they fought, it was quite rough, and the teachers had to intervene. The next day, the Bakugo twins spread the news that Izuku didn't have a quirkless ability throughout the school. The nickname, Deku, was very popular at Aldera. On multiple occasions, the Todoroki twins and Izumi tried to stop the students from using the nickname, Deku. However, the nickname had already spread like wildfire, and the teachers didn't even care. Izumi growls, "Why don't you shut the hell up, Katsuki?" Teacher: "Oh, yes, that reminds me, the Todoroki twins from the other class will also be going to UA. Just like Izumi and Izuku." The class wasn't surprised when they heard that the Todoroki twins and Izumi would be going to UA because they knew they were just as capable as the Bakugo twins, maybe even more so. However, when they heard about Izuku, the entire class was silent for a few seconds, stunned, but immediately burst into laughter once they processed the information. Izumi: "Izuku, are you really going to UA?" Izumi, of course, was naturally worried about her older brother. While she was stunned, Katsuki made Izuku's desk explode as he was knocked over, but before he could land on the ground, Izumi used her quirk to stop him from falling. Katsuki: "Hey, Deku, you're just a quirkless reject, so why do you think you're on the same level as us?" Izumi: "Why don't you stop, Katsuki? You're so irritating." Katsuki: "Shut up, bitch. Besides, does UA even allow quirkless nerds in its halls?" Izuku: "They got rid of that rule, and I'm not trying to compete with you guys. It's been my dream since I was a kid. And I have to, at least try. You know." Izumi: "Izuku." Izumi recognized the look of pure determination in his eyes, as it was one of the things she admired about her brother. However, her former friends had very different reactions. Katsumi: "You think this is a joke?" Katsuki: "What can someone like you do? Time skip. In the now empty classroom, we see Izuku packing his things alone. Izumi wasn't there because a teacher called her somewhere. As he was putting his notebook in his bag, Katsuki snatched it away. Katsuki: "We're not finished yet, Deku." Katsumi: "Katsuki, what is that?" Katsuki turned the notebook in his hand over to show it to his sister and two friends. Katsumi: "My hero analysis for the future. Amigo de Katsuki 1. Series, are you serious?" Katsuki's friend 2. Laughs, Yagi. Izuku: "See, come on, give it back, please." Katsuki then proceeded to use his quirk to blow up Izuku's notebook. Izuku: "Why, you're horrible." Katsumi then grabbed the notebook from his brother's hand and threw it out the window. Katsuki: "Listen, Deku, Katsumi and I have to be the first ones to get into UA out of this boring school. I don't care what those half and half bastards or your sister do. But I don't want word getting around that some quirkless loser thought he was in the same league as us." Katsuki then placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder, who began to steam, and spoke. Katsuki: "Then, just in case, no." He was interrupted when the air around him grew cold as Shoto and Shoka entered the room and saw Katsuki threatening Izuku. Shoto then began to speak in a calm but menacing manner. Shoto: "Let it go, Katsuki, or you'll regret it." Katsuki: "Oh, if it's not the Ice Twins," Katsuki said, gripping Izuku's shoulder tighter as he looked at Shoto. Shoto returned his gaze as his sisters stared at each other. Katsuki's friends took a step back. If this turned into a fight, they didn't want to get involved, especially if it involved the school's biggest stars. Shoka: "It's good to see you again, explosive bitch." Katsumi growls, "What the hell did you say, you ugly piece of shit?" Needless to say, Shoka and Katsumi, they really hated each other. As for why they hated each other so much, that's a story for another time. Shoto: "I'll say it again, let it go." Katsuki: "Tch. Whatever. Guys, let's go." Katsumi. What, are we just going to leave? Katsuki. We won't get anywhere by fighting. Besides, we already warned Deku. Katsumi just sneered in response, but still followed him as they left the room. The Todoroki twins stepped aside because they didn't want the situation to escalate. However, before leaving, Katsuki gave Izuku a farewell message. Katsuki. If you really want to be a hero, there's a way. Wait for a quirk in your next life and jump off the school roof. As soon as those words left their mouths, the entire room was covered in a layer of ice. When they looked at the Todoroki twins, flames began to erupt from their bodies. They began to speak with furious expressions and voices filled with pure rage. Axe. Damn you, Shoto. Katsuki. Third-person point of view. Izumi. What the hell is going on here? Izumi screamed as she burst into the classroom, which was encased in a layer of ice. She was walking back to the classroom to walk home with Izuku when she felt the cold air in the hallway. This alarmed her because she knew that only the Todoroki twins had an ice quirk at school, and they only used it when they were training, fighting, or angry. Izumi. Hello, Shoka Kalma. When he entered the room, the Bakugo twins and their friends were frozen to the neck, and the Todoroki twins had flames erupting from their bodies. Izuku was standing behind Shoto, frustrated that this was his fault. Shoto. Katsuki, you're going to pay. Axe. Take back what you said. Katsuki. Trembling, damn you. Katsumi. Trembling, go to hell. Shoto. Why, little one? Izumi. Growls, don't ignore me. I said calm down, you bastard. Izumi screamed as she used her quirk to shatter the ice and dissipate the flames in the room, freeing the Bakugo twins and their friends from the ice. Had they remained trapped any longer, they would have frozen solid. The Bakugo twins were unable to use their explosions to break free because they were caught off guard and the cold prevented them from producing their nitroglycerin-laced sweat. Izumi. So, why were you fighting this time, Izuku? Izuku. Well, what happened was, the Yagi twins were walking home from school after the incident. After calming the Todoroki twins down, the teacher called their parents. Their mother, Rei Todoroki, came to pick them up from school and made the twins apologize to the students and the school for damaging their property. Fortunately, the Bakugo twins' two friends weren't injured, only catching a slight cold, but if the Bakugo twins were hurt, the Yagi and Todoroki twins wouldn't care. However, the Bakugo twins were quite angry about the situation. After being freed by Izumi, they tried to attack the Todoroki twins, but Izumi simply knocked them to the ground using her quirk. They had to be restrained by the teachers until their parents arrived to pick them up. Izumi. Seriously, they said that. Izumi. Those damn idiots. Izuku. Yes, they did. Izumi. Why you shouldn't take what they said seriously, big brother. Izumi. Sobs. I wouldn't know what I'd do if I lost you. Izuku. Don't worry Izumi, I won't go anywhere. Izuku said with a reassuring smile, letting his sister see his sincerity. Izumi smiled back, and they hugged in the shade of a cherry blossom tree. We see a man sitting on a sofa drinking high-quality wine from a gold goblet in an expensive penthouse. It was Gilgamesh, who was currently alone in the luxurious suite while his wife, Artoria, was still at work. You're probably wondering exactly how our King of Heroes, Gilgamesh, managed to achieve his goal of marrying the King of Knights, Artoria. Well, the quick summary is that, after a few months of living together, Gilgamesh finally saw signs of Artoria's affection for him. Gilgamesh seized this opportunity and asked her out on a few dates, most of which went quite well. After some time, he finally asked Artoria if she wanted a romantic relationship. She blushed, but once she regained her composure, she answered and immediately said yes. Then, after 4 years of courtship, Gilgamesh asked her the most important question he had ever asked her. Will you marry me, Artoria? To which she responded with an immediate, yes. Yes, I'll marry you, Gil. That's a brief summary of how the King of Heroes and the King of Knights married. After their marriage, Gilgamesh took Artoria's surname, Pendragon, and was thus known as Gilgamesh Pendragon. Gilgamesh. How boring, maybe I'll take a walk around the city. The King of Heroes thought as he placed his cup back in his treasury and stood up. He changed into his casual clothes, A black jacket with white stripes and a white V-neck shirt underneath, and black trousers and shoes. Ring, ring, ring. Izumi. Ah, wait, Izuku, mom's calling me. As Izumi and Izuku started walking home, Izumi received a call from her mother. Izuku nodded and Izumi took the phone. Izumi. Hello, Mom. Izumi. Yes, I'm still close to school. Izumi. Sure, I can go get that. Izumi. Yes, goodbye, Mom. Izuku. So, what did you talk about? Izumi. Well, Mom asked me to go buy some groceries. Are you coming with me? Izuku. I'm sorry, but I want to go home and finish the project Mr. Okitani assigned. Izumi. Oh, you're working on the project so early. Still as diligent as ever, huh? Sure, I can go get them myself, just be careful on your way home, okay? Izuku. Yes, I will. Izuku's point of view. Once Izumi and I parted ways, I started walking home alone. As I walked, I thought about what had happened since I was diagnosed with being quirkless. Izuku. So many things happened. First Katsuki and Kastumi started insulting and bullying me. Izuku. Then, I began to be neglected by Mom and Dad. Izuku. At least I still have Shoto, Shoka, Izumi, and my idol, All Might, even though I never met him, but... Izuku. It's so frustrating. I thought with an angry expression as I stood at the entrance of a tunnel, under the bridge, looking down at my feet. Izuku. Why did it have to be peculiar? Why did it have to be so Deku? Izuku. Why did I have to make my childhood friends fight all the time? Why am I so weak? Izuku. Why do I always have to be protected? A hero is the one who protects, not the one who needs protecting. I thought as tears welled in my eyes. I quickly wiped them away with my sleeve. By this point, I was already in the middle of the dark tunnel, and by the time I noticed the mud piling up behind me, it was too late. Izuku. A villain. Sludge villain. A little kid, huh? What a perfect meat shield. I screamed as I tried to run away, but the villain immediately grabbed me and began pouring his mud down my throat. I tried to grab him and pull him away, but my hand just slipped from his grasp every time. The villain was saying something, but I couldn't hear him. My vision was blurring, I couldn't breathe, and I was losing consciousness. I thought I was going to die until I heard the voice that belonged to my idol, one I'd heard thousands of times. All Might. Everything is okay now, young man. I'm here. Third-person point of view. When Sludge villain saw All Might, he tried to attack him using his sludge. However, All Might lunged forward, drew back his right arm, and shouted. All Might. Exploring Texas. All Might didn't even need to strike the villain Sludge directly, as the sheer pressure of the wind was enough to defeat him. The last thing Izuku saw before falling unconscious was the figure of his idol, All Might, saving him. All Might. Damn it. I took too long. Then he started going to check in the young man he saved and to contain the mud villain. All Might. Izuku. All Might. Hey. Heo. Thank God. Izuku pants. Wana Anna. All Might. I'm sorry, I involved you in a battle of villains. I don't normally make these kinds of mistakes, but I was off duty and in a new area. I was just too excited. Laughs. All Might apologized with a wide smile on his face, letting out a laugh at the end of his explanation. Izuku couldn't believe that the number one hero, All Might, was standing in front of him. He quickly snapped out of his daze and wanted to ask for an autograph. Izuku. Autograph. In my notebook. Done. All Might. I remembered that you were always a big fan of All Might, so I decided to give you a small gift, Izuku. Once Izuku saw All Might's signature in his notebook, he began bowing repeatedly. All Might simply chuckled in response. Izuku. Wait, All Might. All Might stopped before he was about to jump. All Might. Yes, what's up, young man? He wouldn't normally stop when trying to say goodbye, especially when he was nearing his limit, but he would make an exception. However, when All Might saw the nervous look in his stepson's eyes, he could guess what he was about to ask him. All Might. No, Izuku, please don't. Izuku. Can I become a hero, even without a quirk? All Might. Oh no. Izuku. Can someone without a quirk become like you? All Might took a deep breath before answering. He was nervous, and his legs were trembling. How could they not be? He was about to tell his stepson to give up on his dreams. All Might. I'm sorry, my son, but this is for your safety. All Might. Professional heroes always risk their lives. It would be a lie if I said, you can be a hero without a quirk. Pain. That was all Izuku was feeling right now. The number one hero, All Might, was the man Izuku had admired for as long as he could remember. He had just been told that he couldn't be a hero. He couldn't say the words Izuku needed to hear from him. So he began to doubt himself. Can he really believe he could be a hero when number one told him he couldn't? While he was thinking about these things, All Might approached him, placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder, and said, All Might. It's not bad to dream, but you need to face reality, young man. Leaving Izuku with those words, he leapt away to hand over the sludge villain. Unbeknownst to him, he had accidentally dropped the bottles containing the sludge villain as he coughed blood into the air. Izuku. What? Katsuki. Panic spread across Izuku's face as he saw Katsuki in the sludge villain's clutches. The area around them was demolished from Katsuki's desperate attempts to break free. Surrounding buildings were also ablaze as the hero, Backdraft, used his quirk to extinguish the flames. The other heroes could only watch as the sludge villain tortured Katsuki because their quirks weren't good enough. Panic spread across Izuku's face as he saw Katsuki in the sludge villain's clutches. The area around them was demolished from Katsuki's desperate attempts to break free. Surrounding buildings were also ablaze as the hero, Backdraft, used his quirk to extinguish the flames. The other heroes could only watch as the sludge villain tortured Katsuki because their quirks weren't good enough. In the crowd of civilians, we see Izumi, who also looked panicked. She had just returned home from grocery shopping. At the store, she saw Katsuki, who was doing the same thing after getting into trouble with the Todoroki twins. We also see a blonde man with crimson eyes among the crowd. Gilgamesh's point of view, pathetic. That was all I could think when I saw those mixed-race idiots who called themselves heroes, letting a child die right in front of them without doing a thing. I thought this incident would relieve some of my boredom, but it only served to fuel my anger toward the fake heroes of this society. Gilgamesh. They're disgraceful, that's what they are. They don't deserve the title of hero. All these pathetic excuses about being heroes shouldn't be such ridiculous excuses. I thought as I prepared to open the gates of Babylon. Ever since I entered into a relationship with Artoria, she has always compelled me to use my power to help others. After some persuasion, I agreed to use my power to help others only when the need arose, since I was already labeled a watcher. I hadn't realized at the time how much authority she had over me. Gilgamesh. I can't believe I'm about to use one of my treasures on living sewer garbage. Love really can make miracles happen. I was about to launch an attack on the eyes of the living sewer filth because it seemed to be its weak point. When I saw a small boy with green hair and green eyes, dressed in a school uniform with a backpack and red shoes, I ran toward the villain. I was surprised that the boy had decided to run to try to save the child the villain was holding hostage. When I looked at the boy's face, it was a mixture of fear, disbelief, and determination. Despite the obvious fear on his face, he kept running, ignoring the warnings of the pathetic heroes. Their attempts to pull the child from the clutches of the trash were desperate. Gilgamesh. This child, his expression, and his soul, is like mine. Unbeknownst to me, this was the first time my gaze had fallen upon the person known as my successor, my champion. He would also become the person I would eventually consider my own family, aside from Artoria and Enkidu. Gilgamesh. His very soul shines golden. Izuku's point of view. When I saw Katsuki's eyes, filled with fear, I ran. I pushed my way through the crowd of people and heroes and ran toward Katsuki. As I ran, I heard the heroes behind me warning me, shouting for me to stop. Death arms. Idiot. Stop. Stop. Izumi. Izuku. Stop. They will hurt you. Izuku. Why did I run out? What am I doing? Why? I thought as I continued running through the area that had been demolished by the sludge villain and Katsuki's quirk. The area was filled with rubble and flames as I headed toward the sludge villain, a terrified expression on my face. That's when I heard him shout, "Sludge villain! Explode and die!" Izuku. What should I do? What should I do? Izuku. Page 25. I was thinking about what I should do when I remembered some of my notes in my hero analysis book. I grabbed my backpack, twirled it around, and then threw it at the sludge villain. I thought it would be a good distraction. Luckily, one of the books that fell out of the backpack hit the villain in the eye, giving Katsuki time to catch his breath. Izuku. Katsuki. Katsuki. Why are you here? Izuku. I don't know why, my legs were moving on their own. I think I had a lot of reasons. I wanted to prove wrong the people who told me to give up on my dream. I wanted to show the people who doubted me and called me a waste of space that I could actually do something. I wanted to be a smiling hero, like All Might, just for that moment. But most of all, I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. Izuku. It looked like you were asking for help. That was my answer to Katsuki's question. I said that while trying to imitate All Might's smile, though with tears in my eyes and a trembling voice. I was trying to pull Katsuki out of the clutches of the slimy villain when a hero shouted. Kamui Woods. Watch out. I immediately turned my head to the right and saw mud, which seemed to be shaped like an arm, heading straight for me. I closed my eyes and waited for the pain, but it never came. I opened them again and saw that the arm had stopped, centimeters before it made contact with my face, by some invisible force. I looked back at the crowd and saw my sister, Izumi, with her right arm outstretched as she used her quirk to prevent the villain from hitting me. Izuku. Izumi. Get out of there, Izuku. Now. Death arms. You will die in vain. It's suicide. Sludge villain. You damn brat. The sludge villain screamed as he manifested another arm made of mud and sent it straight toward me. Izumi couldn't use her quirk on two such large arms at the same time from that distance. The heroes were also too far away to do anything with their quirks. Izuku. I'm finished because. Third-person point of view. Just before Izuku was struck by the sludge villain's other arm, a golden beam of light began shooting directly into the sludge villain's right eye. Upon closer inspection, the beam of light was shaped like an exceptionally well-crafted spear. Clearly, the spear had been made by a master blacksmith. The sludge villain was too distracted by Izuku and Katsuki to notice the spear hurtling straight toward him. Before he knew what had happened, the spear had struck its mark, and the sludge villain died instantly. The spear then kicked up dust in the area where it had hit the villain. Death arms. What happened? Hero. Let's find the children. The heroes exclaimed as they made their way through the smoke and debris to find the villain and the two children involved in the incident. One of the heroes, Kamui Woods, found Izuku, who was sitting on the ground with wide eyes, staring at something. Kamui Woods. Hey, kid. Izuku didn't respond, continuing to stare straight ahead. As Kamui Woods followed Izuku's line of sight, he saw a beautiful spear atop a pile of rubble, small amounts of mud surrounding the pile. The spear was slowly dissolving into golden dust. Izuku. That spear. It's so beautiful. To Kamui Woods. That spear. It can't be. It was the vigilante the police were chasing. He just showed up now. Both Kamui Woods and Izuku quickly recovered from their shock. Kamui Woods then asked Izuku if he was alright. Soon after, one of the other heroes found Katsuki and gave him first aid. The urgency subsided when the heroes confirmed that the sludge villain had died from the attack. Everything was going well. The fire stopped and the two children only suffered minor injuries until an idiotic buffoon finally decided to show up. All Might. Fear not, citizens, I am here. Death arms. My God, you're too reckless. There was no need to put yourself in danger at all. After the incident was resolved, the heroes reprimanded Izuku. However, Katsuki was being praised by them. Some even went so far as to invite him to join their agency as a partner once he turns pro. Once Izuku finished being scolded, he stood up and grabbed his bag. After receiving it, he saw his sister, Izumi, walking slowly toward him with her hair covering her eyes. Once she was in front of him, Izuku began to speak. Izuku. Izumi, I'm sorry for worrying you, but I couldn't just. Izuku was interrupted by Izumi slapping him hard across the face. Immediately afterward, she hugged him tightly, refusing to let go as if he would vanish if she did. Izuku was shocked by her actions, since she had never laid a finger on him, but he could understand why she had done such a thing. Then he heard Izumi crying quietly as she stroked his head. After a while of crying, Izumi began to speak in a trembling voice. Izumi. Sorry for hitting you so hard, big brother. Izuku. It's okay, Izumi, I understand why you did it. Izumi. Whispers, why? Izuku. What, Izumi? Why the hell did you do that? My idiot brother. Izumi suddenly yelled at Izuku, grabbing his neck and shaking him vigorously. Izuku's head bobbed up and down as he tried to calm her down. Once Izumi stopped shaking him, Izuku saw a blonde man behind the group of reporters smiling at him. Izuku. Who could that man be? After the entire sludge villain incident, Izuku and Izumi were walking home in comfortable silence. Izuku was lost in thought, reflecting on what All Might had said and what he had done. His train of thought was interrupted by someone's shouts. Katsuki. Deku. Izuku. Katsuki. Izumi. What do you want now? 32. Katsuki. Panting. I never asked for your help. Katsuki. And you didn't help me. Got it, Katsuki said while making a ridiculously funny, angry face. Meanwhile, Izuku and Izumi just stared blankly, dumbfounded. Izumi. What the hell is wrong with this guy? Katsuki. I was fine on my own, you're just a quirkless failure who wouldn't even work as a mercenary cop. Katsuki. You didn't help me. You didn't do anything, Katsuki said as he put his hands in his pockets and began to walk away in a ridiculous manner. As he yelled at her. Katsuki. Maldito nerd. Izuku and Izumi just stared at Katsuki's back with blank expressions as if they didn't even know what to say. Izumi. Was her brain matter damaged by the villain or something? Izuku. What was that? Izuku. Well, Katsuki's right, it's not like I've done anything to help today. Izuku. But, at least I tried. Izuku. I guess I should give up on my dreams again now. Izuku thought to himself as he lowered his head. Izumi, noticing this, offered Izuku some words of encouragement. As he walked back home, someone called out to Izuku. Gilgamesh. Hey, green-haired kid. N.A. Gilgamesh will act more like Caster Gil because of Artoria. And who wouldn't like that? But he'll act like his own archer if he's angry. When the Yagi twins heard someone calling Izuku, they turned their heads to see who it was. Izuku's eyes widened when he saw the man, recognizing him as the one who had been smiling at him earlier that day. Izuku. It's him. He was the man who smiled at me earlier. Izumi. Does Izuku know this guy? Izumi thought with a confused expression. She looked at Izuku's face and saw that he recognized the man standing before them. The three of them were currently in an ally with few or no other people. After a few seconds of awkward silence, Izuku began to speak. Izuku. Yes, sir. Is there anything you need? Gilgamesh. No, I don't need anything from you. I'd just like to talk to you privately, that's all. Izuku. Talk to me. About what? At this point, Izuku and Izumi were eyeing the handsome blonde man suspiciously. Gilgamesh noticed this, so he reassured them. Gilgamesh. I assure you, children, that I have no ill intentions. Izumi. How do we know that? Gilgamesh. Laughs, well, if I did, you'd already be dead. Izuku and Izumi opened their eyes when they heard Gilgamesh's answer. Izumi began to adopt a protective stance towards her brother. Gilgamesh. Sighs, listen, I really don't have any ill will towards you two. Gilgamesh. I'd like to talk to the green-haired boy about the incident earlier. Izuku and Izumi eyed him suspiciously for a few seconds, until they sighed and nodded. Izumi moved out of earshot, but still managed to keep an eye on both Izuku and Gilgamesh in case anything happened. Izuku. So, what did you need to talk to me about? Sir. Gilgamesh. Pendragon. My name is Gilgamesh Pendragon. Izuku. Pendragon. Like Artoria Pendragon, Izuku exclaimed excitedly. He thought Gilgamesh might be related to the number 3 heroes because of his blonde hair. Gilgamesh. Oh, so you've heard of my wife, E.H. Laughter. Well, I heard she became the country's number 3 hero. Gilgamesh. Although, she never cared about such insignificant things. Izuku. You're her husband. Izumi was startled a little by the sudden shout, but calmed down when she saw that only Izuku was surprised by what the man said. Gilgamesh. Well, let's get to more urgent matters. First of all, what's your name, boy? Izuku. My name is Izuku Yagi. Gilgamesh. So, what's your peculiarity? Izuku. I am the peculiar Mr. Pendragon. Gilgamesh. I see, that's how it is. Well, the last question, do you want to be a hero? Izuku was surprised when Gilgamesh barely reacted to his quirk. He was even more surprised by Gilgamesh's last question. He hesitated, remembering All Might's words. Gilgamesh began to speak again while Izuku was still thinking about what to say. Gilgamesh. I'm not asking if you can be a hero. I'm asking if you want to be a hero. Gilgamesh. Despite the circumstances, you still wish to be a hero. A hero who gives everything to protect people. Gilgamesh. A hero who remains true to his morals and promises. A hero who will do it, not for money or fame, but because he wishes to help others. Gilgamesh. So I'll ask you again, Izuku Yagi, do you wish to be a hero? Izuku. Yes, I will. Izuku gave an immediate response in a determined voice. However, he fell to his knees, clutching his chest, tears streaming down his cheeks. This alerted Izumi once again, and she was about to start walking toward Izuku, but Gilgamesh signaled her to stop. Izuku. But, I'm still a peculiar loser, I can't become a hero at this rate. Gilgamesh knelt down to Izuku's level, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said in a genuine tone. Gilgamesh. So, what if I told you that you can? That you can become the hero who is above all? Izuku's eyes widened at what Gilgamesh said, tears welling in his eyes. He then began to cry himself, still kneeling on the ground. After a few minutes of crying, Gilgamesh gave Izuku something and then left. Izuku then got up and started walking toward Izumi. He asked her some questions about why she was crying and what Gilgamesh had given her. However, Izuku only said that they should talk about it at home. Izumi's point of view. My older brother, Izuku, and I were walking in a familiar neighborhood. It was the neighborhood Izuku and I always passed through on our way to and from school. Just a few minutes ago, the blonde man, Gilgamesh Pendragon, stopped Izuku to ask him some questions. I was very surprised to hear his name and the fact that he's the husband of the number 3 hero. It was a shock because I didn't know Artoria was married. As Izuku and I walked, I was reminiscing about the events that happened on this extremely tiring day. Izumi. First, the Bakugo twins and the Todoroki twins had another fight, which was much more unpleasant than usual. Izumi. So, I heard that Izuku was attacked by the sludge villain earlier. Although I think he's hiding something about it, he didn't mention which hero saved him. Izumi. And to make matters worse, Katsuki is attacked by the same villain who tried to kill Izuku earlier. Izumi. What a tiring day, I sincerely hope nothing else happens later. I thought about it when Izuku and I finally got home. I opened the door and we started taking off our shoes. Then I yelled, Izumi. We're home, Inko. Welcome home, Izumi. Izumi. You're forgetting about Izuku. Inko. Oh, welcome home Izuku. Mom said once again in a bored and disinterested tone. Inwardly, I sighed at that terrible excuse for a greeting. Izuku and I then went to our rooms to clean up. When I opened the door, I was greeted by the all too familiar sight of my room. It was a fairly spacious room, with yellow and purple butterfly patterned wallpaper. The rug on the floor looked exactly like a panda lying on its back. The room's furniture was of very good quality and consisted of a small coffee table, a large bed, and a comfortable chair for my desk, where I had my laptop and school supplies. Then I went to the bathroom to take a shower. Once I finished, I decided to do my homework. After I finally finished my homework, I searched the internet until I was finally called for dinner. Hit, Inko. Izumi, it's time for dinner. Izumi. Boy, I got out of bed and went outside. Then I knocked on Izuku's door and called him for dinner. I knew Mom wouldn't bother knocking on Izuku's door to call him for dinner, so I always had to do it myself. Ever since Izuku was diagnosed with a quirk, Mom and Dad started ignoring and neglecting him. At first, I was confused by their actions, but I eventually understood the situation. As soon as I did, I desperately tried to get Mom and Dad to pay attention to my older brother. After a few years of trying, Izuku told me to stop trying to get our parents to notice him in anything more than simple greetings. At the very least, our mother always made enough food for all of us, including Izuku. Izumi. Izuku, dinner's ready. Izuku. Yes, on my way. Izumi. So, what did you want to talk to me about? After dinner, Izuku went to his room to finish a project. I was also on my way to my room, but Mom and Dad stopped me to talk about something. We were currently in our living room, with me sitting on the sofa across from Mom and Dad. The living room was also quite spacious and had very modern sofas and furniture. It had a large flat-screen TV and a glass coffee table. The carpeting was very comfortable, as were the sofas. Toshinori. Well, Izumi, I think it's time you knew what your mother and I do for a living. Izumi. Now that I think about it, you always dodge the question when I ask you. Toshinori. Well, the truth is. Dad said as smoke suddenly began to fill the room. Once the smoke cleared, I saw the figures of two people. One was gigantic, while the other floated. The sudden appearance of the smoke and the two figures alarmed me, but once I saw who they were, I was completely stunned. Izumi. Aa All Might. G Green Tempest. Might. Laughter. Yes, it's me, All Might's #1 hero. Green Tempest. It's me. The 31st hero. Green Tempest. I was shocked that my mom and dad were the #1 and 31st hero. Honestly, I couldn't believe it. All Might and Green Tempest were the worst parents ever. I wanted to scream at them now more than ever, knowing they were such great heroes who neglected my older brother. However, I was curious about some things, so I suppressed my anger for now. Izumi. Why did you tell me this now? All Might. Well, when I arrived at the villain's attack earlier, I heard from some heroes who were on the scene that you saved Izuku. Izumi. Wait a damn minute. Izuku was the one who saved Katsuki. If he hadn't run there, Katsuki would have suffocated by now. Green Tempest. No, you're wrong Izumi, Katsuki would have survived even if Izuku hadn't run there. All Might. Apart from Izumi, what Izuku did was extremely reckless. He shouldn't try to gain fame and attention by pretending to be a hero. At this point, I was absolutely furious. Luckily, my parents were too clueless to notice. I couldn't believe my parents were so damn stupid. To think they're the parents of my genius brother. Izumi. They're real. Izumi. My parents aren't that stupid, are they? Right. All Might. Anyway Izumi, the reason we told you this is because I want you to inherit my power. Izumi. I inherit your power. I knew such a thing couldn't be true. Not only was it unheard of, but no one had even mentioned it. As I pondered how it could be possible, Dad continued talking. All Might. A power that transfers power. That's the quirk I inherited. It was crowned with the name, One for All. Izumi. One for All. While Dad, who had reverted to his skeletal form, explained One for All and its history, I was in a complete whirlwind of emotions. I was curious, confused, but mostly angry. Once Dad finally finished explaining One for All, he turned to me and said. Toshinori. So, Izumi Yagi, would you like to inherit my power? Izumi. If you could give your quirk to someone all this time, why the hell didn't you choose Izuku? Both Mom and Dad were surprised by the angry tone of my voice. However, they were even more surprised when they heard me swear, which was understandable since I never swore in our house. Once they regained their composure, Dad began to speak. Toshinori. Clears his throat. Well, Izumi, I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider Izuku a worthy heir to my power. However, I don't consider him worthy of inheriting One for All because he's a boy who never worked hard to be a hero. Whereas you, on the other hand, were always protecting and training him to be a hero ever since you got your quirk. Inko. Izumi, we're only worried about him. He was always a fragile child, so he wouldn't be able to handle One for All. He'll always just be someone to be protected by the heroes. The anger, and the fact that I was desperately trying to hold it back, finally got the better of me. I stood up, unconsciously activating my telekinetic quirk. I glared fiercely at Mom and Dad, who were confused by my actions. Then I slammed my hands on the table and began speaking in a very angry tone. Izumi. I never worked hard to be a hero. Do you know how much Izuku has been ridiculed at school for trying to be a hero despite being peculiar? Izumi. How can you, of all people, say that my older brother is unworthy? Inko. Take care of your tone, young lady. Toshinori. As Izuku's father, of course I know that Izuku wouldn't be suitable for One for All. Izumi. Izuku's father. Don't make me laugh. You never acted like a father to him. Toshinori. Of course I did, I even stopped him from trying to become a hero to protect him. Izumi. Wait, what do you mean you stopped him from trying to become a hero? Toshinori. Earlier today, he was attacked by the sludge villain and almost died. He's just a weakling who isn't worthy of One for All. Izumi. So, are you telling me that you told him he couldn't be a hero while you were All Might? Dad just nodded in response, and that's when I realized why Izuku looked so upset on our way home. He'd been rejected by the person he admired most. I was absolutely furious with my parents for thinking they knew everything about my older brother even though they hadn't even bothered to interact with him. I tried to calm myself down so I wouldn't blow up the whole house with my quirk. I looked at my parents, a look still on my face, and said, Izumi. You keep saying Izuku isn't worthy of your quirk, but you're the one who's unworthy. You're unworthy of your power. You're unworthy of your title. Izumi. You are unworthy because you betrayed your son. I once said my quirk was deactivated and slumped down on the couch. I was trying to hold back tears when Dad started talking again. Toshinori. Look, Izumi, think about how strong your quirk would be if you inherited my power. Inko. You could have so many accomplishments if you did. Izumi. Oh, I think I've managed to put up with them for the past 14 years. Toshinori. Sighs. Look, Izumi, I'm not going to give Izuku One for All under any circumstances. Izumi. Growls. Then don't expect a damn successor. I said as I stood up and began to stomp my way to my room, an angry expression still on my face. I turned to my bewildered parents and shouted, Izumi. You'd think a small brain would be all alone in such a big head. Third-person point of view. After Izumi yelled at her parents, we see her stomping up the stairs. At the top of the stairs, she sees Izuku with an angry expression, his fists clenched and his teeth gritted. However, once he sees Izumi, his expression changes to one of appreciation, admiration, and happiness. He then begins to talk to the surprised Izumi. Izuku. Izumi. Izuku ran to Izumi and hugged her. She was surprised by the sudden hug, but she hugged him back anyway. After a few seconds, they separated and Izuku began to speak again. Izuku. Thank you, Izumi, for defending me. Izumi. Don't worry, big brother. I'd do that for you anytime. Izumi said with a bright smile. Izuku also gave a big smile in response. Izumi. Anyway, Izuku, did you hear everything? Izuku. Yes, I heard everything from the beginning. Izumi. Then, big brother, I promise I'll convince Dad to give you his quirk. Izuku. Thanks Izumi, but I think you should accept Dad's offer. Izumi. But why? Izumi asked Izuku sadly, with tears in her eyes. Izuku. Well, even if Dad gave me his quirk, I doubt he's willing to train me. Izuku. Why you're right, but I'll make sure he. Izuku. Don't worry, Izumi, I'm sure you'll be a great hero. After all, you're already mine. Izumi. But what about you, big brother? It's always been your dream to become a hero. Izumi spoke to her brother in a worried tone, trying to understand why Izuku would give up this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to become a hero. However, Izuku had already decided what he had to do, so he had to convince Izumi to take on their father's quirk. Izuku. Izumi. Do you remember the man who came to me earlier? Mr. Pendragon. Izuku's point of view. Izumi. Are you sure about this, big brother? Izuku. Frankly, I'm not, but I refuse to live under the same roof as them. I said with hatred and anger in my tone, while Izumi just nodded in response. Izumi and I were currently in my room. It was just an ordinary room with no furniture other than a chair, a desk, and a bed. The walls of the room were freshly painted white, just like when my parents bought the house. I was packing my clothes, personal items, and essentials into a large black and dark gray backpack. Izumi was with me, asking me about the plan I'd come up with. Izumi sighs, I understand why you're doing this, but if I was lying, I want you back here immediately, okay? Izuku series, I'm so lucky to have such a loving sister. Izumi giggles, thanks for the compliment, big brother. Anyway, let's go over your plan. Izumi's face immediately turned serious. I finished packing my things and turned to Izumi, going over the plan. Izuku. Okay, to start, once I escape, I'll text you to let you know if you can begin the plan or not. Izumi. Okay, you'll text me to continue with the plan if what Mr. Pendragon said is true. And if it's false, you'll come back here immediately, right? While she was speaking, I took out the item Mr. Pendragon had given me, which was a piece of paper. Mr. Pendragon had written his contact number and address on the paper. Gilgamesh. Here, Izuku, take this. Izuku. What is this? Gilgamesh. My address. If you're interested in letting me train you to become a hero, go to that address, I'll let you in. Izuku. But, how will you train me to become a hero? Gilgamesh laughs, don't worry about that, there are many other things that define a hero besides his poor quality quirks. Gilgamesh. If you come and train with me, I can guarantee you something far more extraordinary than any kind of peculiarity. Izuku. Then why did you choose me? Gilgamesh. Why, it's so simple that even a fool can understand. I chose you because I consider you worthy of the title of hero. If anyone dares to say otherwise, then it's false because my judgment is always true. Mr. Pendragon said as he began to walk away, leaving me behind. However, before he did, he turned to me and said, Gilgamesh. Oh, by the way, if you decide to train with me, my wife already has his successor, so you'll train together. Izuku. Yes, I'll come back here immediately if Mr. Pentagon was lying. Although I have a feeling that wasn't the case. My plan involved having a countermeasure in case Mr. Pendragon was lying to me. Of course, this wasn't meant as an insult to him. It's hard to believe that a random person on the street, even if he were the husband of hero number 3, would. Izuku. If I tell you to continue with the plan, you'll accept one for all and wait a few days until you can proceed to the next step. Izumi. Which one is it? Izuku. You'll tell our parents I ran away, since they'd probably be blindsided by the fact that you accepted one for all. Izumi. Okay, once I alert our parents, they'll probably call our aunts and uncles. So what now? Izuku. You will give them this note. It contains my perspective on our parents' neglect of me. Izumi. So, essentially, you're trying to expose our parents' neglect of our relatives. Izuku. Yeah, I know it's not very heroic, but I just want people to know what they did to me. As she said that, tears began to well up in my eyes as I looked down at the ground. Izumi then began to hug me and spoke. Izumi. It's okay, big brother. Even if it's not very heroic, I still support you. Of all people, I understand what you've been through since I witnessed everything. Izuku. Thanks Izumi, I wouldn't know what to do without you. Izumi. Well, you're going to have to learn because if this plan works, you won't be living here anymore. Izuku. Yeah, hopefully, he will. Izumi. Sighs, big brother, just promise me you'll take care of yourself, okay? Izuku. Yes, I will. Izumi. And make sure you always call me so I can see how you're doing. My little sister said, tears welling in her eyes and with an expression that was a mixture of worry, anxiety, and sadness. She was probably about to start crying because I was moving away from this place. Like any older brother would, I patted her head and whispered something to her as I hugged her tightly. Izuku. Whispers, don't worry, Izumi, I promise nothing will happen to me. And once we meet again in person, it will be in the UA Hero course. Izuku. So cheer up. We'll both become great heroes in the future. Izumi. Sobs, why yes, you're right, big brother. I'll see you again in the UA Hero course. Third person point of view. After that bittersweet goodbye, Izuku headed downstairs to leave. He was currently wearing a dark green jacket with the hood up and a black cap on his head. He had a black shirt underneath his jacket and wore matching black jeans. A face mask was there to keep his identity hidden from any potential onlookers, since heroes might search the city once they discovered he was missing. He also put on gloves because it was a bit chilly. It was midnight, so it was easy for her to leave the house. Once outside, she took out her phone and started playing music as she walked toward Gilgamesh and Artoria's apartment. Fortunately, there were still night buses running, so he boarded one and started heading in the direction written on the paper. It took him about an hour to finally reach the building where they lived. Izuku pondered what he should do since he didn't want to disturb them so late at night. Izuku. I probably should have come here in the morning. Izuku. Well, there's no way around it, I've already come here and I should finish it. Izuku thought with an unyielding expression. Then he proceeded to enter the beautiful building. The guards at the main gate were prepared for anything Izuku might do, so they let him in because he might want a room for the day, despite how suspicious he looked. Once inside, he was greeted by the sight of a grand hall with many glamorous furnishings. The receptionist's desk was quite spacious for just 3 people. The receptionists were enjoying their midnight snacks. Izuku. Hello, good evening, or rather, good morning. Receptionist. Oh, good morning, sir. How can I help you? Izuku. I'd like to speak with one of your residents. Mr. Pendragon. The receptionists instantly raised an eyebrow at Izuku's statement. They'd worked hard enough to know that the number 3 hero and her husband had never invited anyone over during their time there, aside from a certain girl. Receptionist. Mr. Pendragon. The one in our most expensive suite. The husband of the number 3 hero. Izuku. Yes, that's him. Receptionist. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you for proof that Mr. Pendragon allowed you into his suite. Izuku. Well, all I have is this piece of paper he gave me that has his address on it. Receptionist. That's not enough proof, kid. As far as we know, you're the one who could have written this. Izuku. Bueno. Receptionist. Sighs. Well, if he doesn't have any more business, I'm going to have to ask him to leave. Izuku. Wait, you can ask him. He said he'd let me in. Receptionist. Well, we can't bother you this late, it's 1 o'clock, for goodness sake. What's going on here? Just when things were going downhill, a beautiful girl appeared. She had silky peach-colored hair and an attractive figure. The girl also had heterochromia iridium, just like Shoto and Shoka. Her eyes appeared lime green on the right and golden yellow on the left. She wore a large pink hoodie, blue jeans, and white shoes. Izuku was surprised when a stunning girl his age looked directly at him with a curious expression. He was then brought back to reality when the receptionist started talking to the girl. Receptionist. Mrs. Anastasia Fujiwara. Why are you here so late at night? Anastasia. Well, I couldn't sleep, so I decided to go for a nighttime walk. The girl said with a small smile on her face as she spoke to the receptionist. Then, her eyes shifted to the suspicious-looking boy with a face mask as she questioned the receptionist once more. Anastasia. So, what seems to be the problem here? Receptionist. Well, this young man wanted to speak with Mr. Pendragon. Izuku. Yes, that's right. Just tell him Izuku is here and he'll surely let me in. Izuku pleaded with the receptionist once again, who only sighed in response. Anastasia, curious about the situation, decided to ask Izuku a question. Anastasia. Are you really here to talk to Uncle Gil? Izuku. Uncle Gil. Oh, Gilgamesh. Then she must be a relative. Izuku. Yes, I'm here to talk to Mr. Pendragon about something. Anastasia. Are you sure about that, Mr. Suspicious? Laughs honestly, your outfit makes you look like you're robbing a convenience store or something. Izuku blushed slightly, embarrassed beneath his mask. Only now did he realize exactly how much he resembled a generic thief. He had originally chosen this outfit because he thought it would make him look less conspicuous. Anastasia then began speaking once more. Anastasia. Well, let me call Uncle Gil really quickly to confirm if he invited you here. You can wait there for a moment, right? Anastasia finished the last part with a hint of suspicion in her voice, glancing at Izuku as if gauging his reaction to her statement. Izuku simply nodded briskly in response. Then, Anastasia pulled her phone from her hoodie pocket and began fiddling with it. She then turned around and put the phone to her ear. Anastasia. Hello, Uncle Gil, Gilgamesh. What's wrong, Anastasia? You'd better have a good reason for waking me and Artoria up. Anastasia. Oh, did you sleep together again? Like that unsanitary guy? If so, then the walls really are soundproof, huh? You're lucky. Gilgamesh. Enough. Get to the point or I'll hang up and make you double your training for next week. Anastasia. Wait, anything but that. Gilgamesh. Then get to the point. Anastasia. Well, a suspicious-looking boy wanted to talk to you. Gilgamesh. I tell Artoria to double your training. Anastasia. Wait, his name is Izuku. Anastasia. If Uncle Gil doesn't know him, then I'm going to give this Izuku guy an idea. Anastasia said, looking at Izuku, who just seemed confused. Meanwhile, Gilgamesh, who was in his large bedroom with a naked Artoria covered only by a blanket, was surprised by Izuku's sudden appearance. Of course, Gilgamesh expected Izuku to come to him for training, since his charisma never failed him with ordinary people. However, what he hadn't expected was for him to arrive at his house in the middle of the night. Gilgamesh. Why are you here in the middle of the night? Gilgamesh. Did she escape? It's not beyond the realm of possibility. From what I know, people without quirks have a difficult life. Anastasia is proof of that. Gilgamesh. Sighs, well, he's here anyway, I might as well let him in. Gilgamesh. You can let him in, Anastasia. Anastasia. Yes, I don't have to double my training per week. Gilgamesh. Your training will be doubled by trying to go out so late at night. Anastasia. What? How did you know? Gilgamesh. Then why the hell are you in the lobby, talking to me on the phone? The guards wouldn't let Izuku in just like that. Anastasia. Sighs, I'm sorry, Uncle Gil, we'll be there in a few minutes. Gilgamesh then sighed in exasperation as he hung up the phone. Artoria then looked at Gilgamesh and began to speak. Artoria. What was Anastasia talking about? Gilgamesh. It seems he found someone very special down there. Artoria. Special? Wait, you don't mean. Gilgamesh. Yes, my love. That someone is my successor. Artoria. Sobs, I see. It seems we can stay together for a while longer, huh? My love. Third person point of view. Anastasia. So, what are you going to talk to Uncle Gil about anyway? In what was known as the finest apartment building in Musudafu, Japan, two people were currently in an elevator heading to the penthouse. The two, Izuku and Anastasia, were discussing the reason for Izuku's visit while they waited for the elevator to reach the top floor, where the penthouse was located. Izuku. Well, Mr. Pendragon said he wanted to train me to be a hero. Anastasia. Pants, so you're going to be her successor, huh? Izuku. Well, I'm just going to be trained by him and I'm not sure if I'm good enough to be anyone's successor yet. Anastasia. No, I'm quite sure you'll be his successor since he never trains anyone, not even me. And I'm his wife's successor, the least he could do is train me a little if he can. Anastasia. He doesn't train me, and yet he's always threatening to double my training and calling me a half-breed whenever I annoy him or do something stupid. Anastasia. Do you know how long it took me to finally earn some of his respect so that he would stop calling me a half-breed except when I annoy him? Anastasia complained quietly but eventually shouted. From Izuku's perspective, the sight of a beautiful girl pouting in front of him was incredibly cute. Although he was very confused about what she was saying. Then the elevator rang as they finally arrived at the penthouse of the apartment building where the Pendragons and Anastasia lived. Anastasia. Wait, let me go find Uncle Gil. Izuku. Why yes, of course. Izuku. Sorry for intruding. Izuku barely managed a stammer in response, as he realized he was in the house of the number 3 hero. When Izuku entered the living room, he was speechless at the exquisite design and how modern it was. In the living room, there were 2 large sofas, a sublime navy blue, adorned with light gray and white cushions. A brown chair sat to one side. 2 tables in the center of the room were made of glass and black painted wood. The rug on the floor featured triangular patterns in light blue and gray. To the left of the room, a wooden table held a large flat-screen television and a few decorative items. Directly behind it was a huge window overlooking the entire city. Izuku. Where should I sit? He thought frantically as he looked around the attic, but finally decided to simply sit on the nearest sofa. He took off his mask and put it in his bag as he tried to calm his nerves while waiting for Gilgamesh. Finally, the man in question entered the room and sat down across from Izuku. Gilgamesh. So, you came. Gilgamesh said with a smile on his face that made Izuku even more nervous. It was now morning, and we saw the sun's rays striking the closed eyes of the former Yagi. He was currently in the Pendragon's attic guest bedroom. He opened his eyes groggily, got out of the large bed, and looked at the clock on the wall. Izuku. It's noon. Izuku looked surprised as he immediately got out of bed and tidied it up before heading to the bathroom to freshen up. Once he finished, he immediately left and went to the kitchen. The kitchen had a lovely wooden floor that was very pleasing to the eye. It also featured a polished island and some kitchen stools for extra seating. The cabinets were gray, and next to them was an oven. There were also plants as decoration, among other things. Once Izuku arrived in the kitchen, he saw Gilgamesh and Artoria preparing lunch. They were having a light conversation while they were cooking some katsudon and tempura for lunch. Gilgamesh suddenly stopped what he was doing and began to speak aloud. Gilgamesh. So you finally decided. Appear, Izuku. Izuku. Why yes, I apologize for waking up so late, Mr. Pendragon. Artoria. So you're the Izuku I've heard about. It's a pleasure to meet you, I'm Artoria Pendragon. Although, I'm sure you already know that. When Artoria began speaking to Izuku, he froze for a split second and responded with a respectful voice, much like the one he used earlier for Gilgamesh. Izuku. It's also a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Pendragon. I'm Izuku, and I came here so your husband could train me. I apologize for intruding so late last night. Artoria. All right, and please call us by our names, we're more used to that. But Izuku, I'm curious why you came here so late last night. Once Artoria asked that question, Izuku shuddered slightly, which did not go unnoticed by either Gilgamesh or Artoria, as they both raised an eyebrow. Izuku. I ran away. Neither Artoria nor Gilgamesh were surprised by Izuku's answer. They had already theorized about why Izuku arrived so late at night while they were cooking. They had also witnessed firsthand how cruel people could be to those with quirkless abilities. Gilgamesh. I see, so what do you plan to do? Izuku was surprised that the Pendragons, especially Artoria, didn't ask any more questions. When he looked at their faces, they seemed to understand his situation. Then he answered Gilgamesh's question. Izuku. Well, to start, I think I'll rent a small apartment near here and work part-time while I train. Izuku. I have enough money saved to rent an apartment right now, but I need to work part-time to be prepared for when it finally runs out. Izuku explained to the couple that they were frowning at his situation. After he finished speaking, Artoria offered him something that would help him in the long run. Artoria. Izuku, would you like to come live with us? Izuku. Izuku's point of view. When Artoria offered me a place to live, I tried to refuse, but she kept insisting. Once Anastasia, who was in the training room, found out, she also tried to convince me to stay. While Artoria and Anastasia were trying to persuade me to stay, Mr. Gilgamesh just laughed at my predicament as he finished preparing breakfast. Eventually, I gave in and agreed to stay since it was advantageous for me as well. Then we proceeded to have a good breakfast. After lunch, Mr. Pendragon and I were sitting in the living room. I was on one of the navy blue sofas while he sat in the brown chair opposite me with his left leg over his right. Artoria and Anastasia were currently in the attic training room. Gilgamesh was currently wearing a white, long-sleeved, V-neck shirt and black pants. He also had a gold necklace and gold bracelets. Izuku. So, what are we going to talk about, Mr. Gilgamesh? Izuku. Successor. I thought you were just going to train me. I don't think I'm ready to become anyone's successor. Gilgamesh. Nonsense. The only person I will train is you. Therefore, you will be my successor. Gilgamesh said happily, a smile on his face. It seemed to me he was pleased to have found a successor. Out of curiosity, I decided to ask him about it. Izuku. Gilgamesh, why do you seem so happy to have found me as your successor? Gilgamesh. Laughs, so you know what you need to know about my origins and Artoria's. Gilgamesh. However, nothing I say will leave this room, do you understand? Izuku. Swallows, I understand. Once Gilgamesh finished explaining his and Artoria's origins, I was completely shocked. He explained the Holy Grail Wars, specifically how he and Artoria were summoned to participate in the Fourth Holy Grail War and how they came to this world. He also explained heroic spirits and noble phantasms. He also mentioned the fact that he was the vigilante the police were after and the fact that he was the one who saved me during the sludge villain incident. Izuku. Muttering, to think this is possible. How did the Holy Grail teleport you all here? Are you going to disappear? Do you have quirks there, or did everyone have that noble phantasm s? Gilgamesh. Laughs, I can see you're excited, but let me get on with it, half-breed. Izuku. Eep. Mestizo. Gilgamesh. Anyway, once we arrived in this world, Artoria and I thought it was only a matter of time before we disappeared. Izuku. Disappear. Gilgamesh. Yes, it disappears. You see, Artoria and I can continue to exist in this world because of the excess mana we bathed in before being transported to this world. However, that mana will soon expire. Gilgamesh said as he looked out the window. We had a wonderful view of the entire city below us. At night, watching the city lights is a sight to behold. I was really surprised when he said they were both going to disappear. Then I realized that this was the reason Artoria was retiring from hero work. I was also confused about why they needed successors, so I decided to ask about it. Izuku. If you're going to disappear then, shouldn't you spend as much time together as possible? Izuku. I mean, once you leave this world, you'll go back to being a servant, right? Izuku. If that's the case, then spending the time they have left as husband and wife should be their priority since, as far as I can tell, there's no guarantee they'll ever meet again. Gilgamesh. Laughs, that's what I thought too, but Artoria and I have recently made a discovery. Izuku. What could that be? Gilgamesh. To put it bluntly, we found a way to continue existing in this world. Izuku. Really? Then that's great. Gilgamesh. However, to do so requires a successor, someone worthy enough to inherit my and Artoria's noble phantasm. At this point, I was very confused, but I still tried to calmly analyze everything Gilgamesh was saying. I listened attentively while jotting down all the important points in my head. Gilgamesh. Do you know that both Artoria and I need mana to sustain ourselves? Well, once we came to this world, we saw that everyone had mana, yet they weren't even aware of its existence. Gilgamesh. I once tried to absorb some mana from someone, but I found that I couldn't. Eventually, I decided that trying to absorb mana from the inhabitants of this world would only be useless, so I gave up. Gilgamesh. However, recently, Artoria discovered a way to absorb mana from another person. Izuku. Trace, so how do you do that? As soon as I uttered that answer, Gilgamesh smiled and said. Gilgamesh. Using our noble phantasms. You see, when we discovered that Anastasia was able to wield Excalibur, Artoria could use the link between them to absorb Anastasia's mana. Izuku. But I thought you were the only ones capable of using your noble phantasms. Gilgamesh. That's what we thought too. However, that's clearly no longer the case. Gilgamesh. Of course, not just anyone can wield our noble phantasms, you must be deemed worthy. Just like in the case of Anastasia, where Artoria and Excalibur recognized her. Once he finished explaining, I finally understood why he needed a successor. It was to protect the happy life he has with his wife. So I asked him, Izuku. So you chose me to be your successor because you recognized me as. Gilgamesh. Yes, I did. Gilgamesh said as he stood up and stood in front of the enormous window. Gilgamesh. When I saw you run straight towards the villain, I couldn't help but think that you were the only real hero there. Gilgamesh. Your lips may lie, however, your heart and soul never do. Gilgamesh. So I'll ask you one more time, Izuku, do you want to be a hero? He asked, extending his hand toward me. I stood up from my seat, took his hand, and said in a determined voice. Izuku. Yes, I want to be a hero. More than anything. Third-person point of view. Toshinori. Laughs, I knew you'd come, Izumi. The Yagas were currently in their dining room, having lunch. It was the weekend, and the family was celebrating Izumi's acceptance of One for All. A few days had passed since Izuku ran away, and he had given his sister the green light to continue with her plan. Izumi. These parents of mine are a real handful. Izumi. Izuku was right, they didn't even notice his absence when I told them I would accept One for All. Izumi thought with an irritated expression as she shoved another spoonful of rice into her mouth. Toshinori and Inko were discussing what Izumi's training regimen should be because when she obtains One for All, her telekinetic quirk will be amplified exponentially. Toshinori. Izumi, tomorrow we should start training your body so you can inherit One for All. Fortunately, our training for that should only take 5 months or so because I've been training you since you started high school. Inko. After that, I'll teach you how to effectively use our telekinesis quirk for combat and rescues. Toshinori and Inko said in cheerful and excited voices that made Izumi sigh internally because, in a few hours, they were going to have the worst night of their lives. To explain Toshinori's statement, he had been training Izumi's physical body as soon as he could. This was to prepare her for One for All in the future. The training itself only involved Izumi doing light muscle training during her teenage years. Toshinori was now going to start pushing her beyond her limits since she had accepted to be his successor. Izumi. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I'll make sure to become a great hero in the future. Izumi spoke with a fake smile at first, but finished with a determined voice full of tenacity. Then she proceeded to finish her meal and wash the dishes, but before leaving, she asked a question. Izumi. Oh, Mom and Dad, can we invite our relatives over for dinner? Inko. Why do you want to invite them to dinner? Izumi. Well, since Dad mentioned that everyone knew about One for All, I thought we should celebrate. Toshinori. That's a great idea. One for All will have its 9th wielder, so we should celebrate big. Inko. But how will we put up the decorations? Toshinori. Don't worry, he said as he disappeared in a puff of smoke and transformed into his buff form. All Might. Because I'm here. To help my daughter celebrate with joy. All Might. Since we start training tomorrow, we should use this day for big celebrations. Inko. All right, Toshinori, let's decorate. Izumi. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for. Okay, Izumi. I'll help you guys, just give me a few minutes to invite everyone. Izumi said as she ran upstairs to her room to get her phone. The three of them were excited about the idea, Izumi for a different reason, of seeing everyone and celebrating something as big as this. It was now 6 p.m. At the Yagi house, we see a dining room and a living room that are fully decorated. The decorations themselves were simple, but there were many of them. Toshinori and Inko had finished decorating the house just in time for dinner. With Izumi, she had successfully invited everyone to dinner. At first, some of them were busy, like Aizawa and Enji, but seeing what the Yagi family was celebrating, they decided to make time in their schedules. The people who were invited were Shota Aizawa, the Bakugo family, the Todoroki family, except for Fuyumi and Natsuo, Gran Torino, Detective Naomasa Tsukauchi, and Nezu. Nezu had come to see the new wielder of the peace symbol's quirk. Izumi. Fortunately, everyone agreed to come to the celebration on such short notice. Izumi. Although it's a little stressful having to pretend in front of everyone that I don't know where Izuku is. Izumi. I'm not an actress. I could only fool Mom and Dad this way because they're complete idiots. Izumi thought with a nervous expression as she looked at her reflection in the mirror. She was currently wearing a very elegant rose gold dress, the skirt of which reached her knees, with pale yellow heels. She also had on some accessories like butterfly earrings, which resembled the ones on her bedroom wall, and some gold bracelets. Izumi. Sighs, I highly doubt I can fool everyone here, especially Uncle Nezu and Uncle Shota, with my bad acting. I'll probably need to talk to them about this later. Izumi. Uncle Enji and Grandpa will probably be consumed by anger that would prevent them from thinking rationally. Izumi. Now that I think about it, Izuku and I never told Shoto and Shoka about our parents' negligence because Izuku didn't want to cause them or their parents any trouble. Hit, Inko. My dear Izumi. Are you ready? The guests will start arriving soon. Izumi. Okay, Mom, just give me a few more minutes. The star of the show answered out loud when her mother went to finish cooking. Once Izumi confirmed that Inko wasn't in the hallway and was in the kitchen, she quickly grabbed a piece of paper from her desk and headed to Izuku's old room. The paper she held was Izuku's letter to his neglectful parents, intended to expose them. She then entered the dirty room and placed the letter inside the drawer of Izuku's desk. Izumi. Okay, it's time to take the next step. Inside the Yagi house were all the guests invited to celebrate Izumi's acquisition of One for All. The guests were dressed in semi-formal attire, as this party wasn't meant to be grand, just enough for everyone to enjoy. Everything was going smoothly. The Bakugo twins and the Todoroki twins were doing their best not to rush each other, and they were mostly successful. While everyone was chatting amongst themselves, Toshinori drew everyone's attention. Toshinori. Everyone, I think most of you know why we came here today. Once again, he disappeared in a puff of smoke and reappeared as All Might, wearing a formal suit that was initially too big for Toshinori. All Might. It's to celebrate Izumi as the 9th wielder of One for All. Katsuki. What? Katsumi. Mirda. Shoto. How the hell? Shoka. Damn it. As soon as Toshinori transformed into his enhanced form, the Bakugo twins and the Todoroki twins were immediately confused because no one told them why they were there, and the answer they received was that Izumi had become the 9th holder of One for All, from All Might himself. All Might. I'm sorry you find out this way, young Bakugo twins and young Todoroki twins. All Might. But as I was saying, we came here to celebrate Izumi becoming the 9th holder of One for All. He raised his champagne glass and said in a very loud, proud voice. All Might. Izumi. Guests. To Izumi. After the toast was made, the Bakugo twins and the Todoroki twins immediately looked at their parents and demanded a detailed explanation. Toshinori offered to explain it to them. After a while, the two sets of twins had different reactions. The Todoroki twins were excited to have a friendly rivalry with Izumi, now that they knew she was the daughter of the #1 hero. On the other hand, the Bakugo twins were very jealous that Izumi had become the successor to the symbol of peace, but they knew there was nothing they could do about it. However, both sets of twins had an important question on their minds, one that was about to be answered. Why didn't they give that quirk to their child? Izumi. Now that the toast is over, all I have to do is wait for someone to bring up Izuku and act like I don't know where he is. Fortunately, he didn't have to wait long. Aizawa. Where is Izuku? Rei. Oh, yes, where is he? I didn't see him during the toast. Toshinori. I think Izuku is in his room, although he doesn't know about One for All yet. Enji. Since your successor is his sister, he deserves to know. Aizawa. Wait a minute, why didn't you want to give Izuku One for All? When he said that, everyone realized, especially Enji and Aizawa because they visit him once a month, so they knew that Izuku wanted to be a hero even though he didn't have a quirk. Whenever they visited him, Izuku always hid his neglect as best he could, even lying to his family, because he didn't want to create drama. However, that's precisely what the Yagi twins are going to do. Toshinori. I didn't want to give him One for All because I simply don't find him heroic enough to wield it. Rei. You must be joking, Toshinori. Izuku is one of the kindest children I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. Enji. What makes you think that he, of all people, is not worthy? Gran Torino. While I agree that Izumi is worthy of One for All, I'm curious to know why you think Izuku isn't heroic. Enji and Rei pressed Toshinori for answers, their voices tinged with curiosity and anger. Gran Torino, meanwhile, calmly questioned Toshinori about why he trusted his judgment, also harboring a hint of curiosity. Inko was being bombarded with questions from Mitsuki and Masaru. Aizawa, Nezu, and Tsukauchi simply observed the scene. Shoka. I'm going to go see Izuku. Shoto. I'm going too. Izumi. Yes, let's go. The Todoroki twins and Izumi rushed upstairs to find Izuku. Once they reached his bedroom door, Shoto opened it and was immediately hit by the smell of dust and saw that no one was there. Shoka. Hey, Shoto. Nobody here. Izumi. Guys, Izuku isn't here. Izumi shouted loudly so the guests could hear him over their arguments. After everyone heard what Izumi said, they immediately went upstairs and looked at Izuku's dirty room. Aizawa. What? Why is it so dirty and where is Izuku? Tsukauchi. Toshinori, do you know where he is? Tsukauchi asked as he activated his quirk, determined to get to the bottom of this. While he was questioning Toshinori, Enji looked around the room and found a letter in Izuku's drawer. Enji. Toshinori, what the hell is this? He said in a voice mixed with rage as his flames erupted. Rei tried to calm her husband but failed because Enji was heading straight for Toshinori. Shoto. Dad, what's wrong with you? Shoka. Stop, your flames are going to burn the house down. Rei. Calm down Enji. Then, ice began to forcefully stop the flames from getting out of control once Enji calmed down enough to prevent his fire from spreading to the house. However, some flames still lingered on his face, just like when he's in his hero costume. Enji. Look at this. He said this as he tossed the letter to Toshinori. Fortunately, Enji didn't burn the paper. Toshinori then began to read the letter aloud. Toshinori. Dear Yagus family, as some of you may not know, I am a victim of neglect. Yes, that's right, who the hell knew that the symbol of peace was a shitty father? He and Green Tempest were supposed to be heroes, inspire others, not neglect their son. That's right, I knew my so-called parents were the greatest heroes because I overheard them talking to Izumi about One for All. Speaking of which, am I not heroic enough? What do you know about me? You never bothered to interact with me unless Izumi told you to. And the Bakugo twins, screw you. You bastards always bullied me. I'm grateful to the Todoroki twins and Izumi for always protecting me at school from you assholes and Katsuki. Suicidal bullying is certainly not heroic. To my relatives, please don't blame yourselves for not noticing and not stopping my stupid parents from neglecting me. Because I always hid it from you on purpose, and I appreciate you always showering me with affection even though you rarely visited, which I understand. One last thing, I agree with Izumi getting One for All because I'm going to be a great hero even without it. I'm going to prove that All Might, who doubted me, was wrong. Just wait for me at Ua. And don't bother trying to find me, Uncle Nezu knows you can't even if you try. With pure and unbridled hatred for my parents, Izuku. Third-person point of view. Anger. That was all the people at Izumi's party, which became the revelation of the year, could feel. Who could have guessed that the symbol of peace himself could be such a terrible father? None of the party guests could, if their frozen, shocked bodies were any indication. When Toshinori finished reading Izuku's letter, he turned around only to feel Eraserhead's binding web ensnare him. Alarmed, he quickly looked toward the source of the web. He saw his brother-in-law staring at him, his shoulder-length black hair floating and his eyes glowing red, indicating that his quirk was activated. Toshinori then began to speak in a trembling voice, stuttering. Toshinori. I'm sorry, Shota. Shortzawa. Sorry, am I the person you should be saying that to? Aizawa. I knew something was up whenever I noticed Izuku and Izumi lying to me sometimes, but I didn't think it would be this. Aizawa. They always told me everything was fine when I asked them, and that you were there to help them. But you weren't. Aizawa shouted in an enraged voice as he pulled Toshinori closer. He grew angrier by the second as his gaze intensified. Once Toshinori was just a few feet away from Shota, he was suddenly kicked hard in the face by Gran Torino, the grandfather of the missing boy. Gran Torino. Toshinori, you damned hypocrite. You were peculiar before you inherited One for All, but you neglected your son, who was just like you. Gran Torino, he said as he kicked Toshinori once more. After enduring 2 kicks from his former mentor, Toshinori fell to the ground. He was still wrapped in Shota's bandages when he landed hard on the carpet, which was covered in a layer of dust. Enji then stood over him, his powerful body's shadow and flames enveloping him. Enji. You stupid imbecile. Enji screamed as flames erupted from his back, some forming his beard and mustache. Then he roughly lifted Toshinori from the ground and glared at him fiercely. Enji. Your son was one of the people who stopped me from abusing my family. Yet, you would make the same mistake I did. Enji. You were supposed to be the #1 hero. You were supposed to be better than me. Better than Artoria, or all the other heroes in Japan. Enji. But it seems that you are not only the symbol of peace and the #1 hero, but also a charlatan. While Enji and the other 2 were busy yelling in Toshinori's face, Inko was also being questioned and was on the receiving end of the anger of her 2 now former friends, Mitsuki and Rei. Masaru was currently reprimanding his 2 sons, who were in shock that Izuku had the nerve to run away from home. Shoto and Shoka were currently comforting Izumi, who was pretending to cry while burying her face in her hands. While the whole room was in chaos, Nezu and Tsukauchi were deciding when to stop them to discuss what to do about the situation and what punishment to administer to the offenders. Nezu. Very well, that's enough. Once Nezu said that, everyone immediately stopped and stared at him. Some of the people there weren't surprised that Nezu didn't have his usual smile on his face, as it was now replaced by a scowl and almost murderous glares. Tsukauchi was grateful to Nezu because he wanted to get to the bottom of this problem as soon as possible. Nezu. I think we should all take a moment to sit down and discuss what we should do. Tsukauchi. Yes, you're right. We won't get anywhere by admonishing the four of them because, believe me, they'll soon get what they deserve. After Nezu and Tsukauchi stopped them, the guests tried to calm down. Keyword. Tried. Enji and Rei refrained from burning or freezing the entire house since they were the closest to the Yagi family. However, Enji still sported his fiery beard and mustache. Meanwhile, the others continued to stare at the two Yagas and the Bakugo twins. Then they all went to the living room to sit down and discuss their dilemma. Izumi's point of view. I was currently sitting in the living room, pretending to look depressed. I glanced at my parents, who had horrified, fearful, and worried expressions on their faces. My relatives seemed to feel the same way, judging by their body language. However, their anger toward my parents was the only thing that was reflected on their faces. Beside me were Shoka and Shoto, my two best friends, who were also watching the scene with anger, concern, and curiosity. Tsukauchi. To begin, I'd like to ask Toshinori and Inko this: do you remember anything about Izuku? What were his hobbies, or his favorite food? Ink. Sobs. I don't know. Toshinori. I don't know either. Tsukauchi. Sighs. Damn it. It's true. Waiting for Tsukauchi's confirmation, everyone's gazes intensified. From what she'd heard, he had a quirk for detecting lies, which was fitting for his work as a detective. The atmosphere in the living room also began to grow even more stifling than it already was. Uncle Nezu then began to speak, his smile gone, the one she'd always seen on his face. Nezu. Well then, I'd like to know everyone's opinion on this matter. Should we try to find Izuku or not? Enji. Isn't it obvious? We should go ahead and find him now. Aizawa. I agree with him, we should try to find him before it's too late. Gran Torino. It's not safe for a teenager with villains roaming around. Rei. I agree with everyone. But if we find him, he won't stay here anymore. Inko. Rei, what do you mean by that? Rei. Exactly what it means, he'll stay in our house, away from you. My gaze shifted to my mother, who seemed terrified at the prospect of letting Izuku stay at someone else's house. Meanwhile, Dad wore an angry expression on his face as he listened to what Aunt Rei had said. Toshinori. No, you can't. Absolutely not. He's my son. It should be. Enji. I refuse. It's better that he stays with my family because he already has a good relationship with my sons and daughters and he won't be near his neglectful parents. What Uncle Enji said was true, he and I have a good relationship with the Todoroki family. This is because whenever Shoto and Shoka invited us to play at their house, Aunt Rei, Natsuo, or Fuyumi would often look after us until we were old enough to take care of ourselves. This also ties into how my older brother and I resolved the issue surrounding Uncle Enji. Izuku managed to win Uncle Enji over through his persistence in getting his autograph, which, looking back, was quite amusing to watch. On the other hand, I encouraged the rest of the Todoroki family to put aside their animosity for a while and have a sincere conversation with Uncle Enji. Fortunately, everything worked out in the end thanks to Izuku helping Uncle Enji arrive at a clear answer. From then on, Uncle Enji always visited us at least once a month and allowed us to refer to him as Uncle. Shoto, Shoka, and the rest of the Todoroki family were eternally grateful to us for helping them and Uncle Enji resolve their family issues. Aunt Rei also decided to train her quirk to help with Shoto and Shoka's training in the future. Returning to the chaotic argument, Dad replied to Uncle Enji, saying, Toshinori, how is it better for him to stay with you when you were a terrible father and husband? Uncle Enji instantly wore a pained expression filled with regret and shame. Looking at Dad, Aunt Rei and the Todoroki twins began to shout at him. Rei! Don't you dare speak like that about my husband, you hypocritical bastard. Shoka! Don't talk to my dad like that just because of his past mistakes, he's not to blame right now. Shoto! I agree, at least dad made a great effort to fix his mistakes, unlike you, who stubbornly wants his son to return to the same place he ran away from to live with the two people he hates. Shoka! Izumi is the only person Izuku cares about in this house because you didn't care about him either. Aunt Rei and the Todoroki twins glared coldly at my father, who seemed ashamed that the Todoroki family was right in their statements. Both he and his mother lowered their heads and stared at the floor, their fists clenched in their laps. Izumi! Dang, they managed to make mom and dad lower their heads. Izumi! I can't blame them. If someone spoke to my future husband like that, I'd be furious too. Izumi! Actually, what would I like my future husband to be like? Maybe pink hair and a complexion like mine. And a little feminine. Not to mention he has to be really cute sometimes and, wait. What on earth am I thinking? Shaking my head to get rid of those thoughts, I concentrated on the matter at hand. Enji. That's enough, thank you for defending me. Toshinori, you may have been right about what you said, if you said it 9 years ago it's because I'm not like that anymore. After thanking his family for defending him with a warm smile on his face, Uncle Enji responded to Dad's statement in a tone that anyone could tell contained only the truth. Aizawa. Alright, I trust you to take care of Izuku once we find him, Enji. Uncle Enji nodded in response to Uncle Shota's statement. At that moment, Uncle Nezu finally began to speak, and we all listened attentively, knowing his words would have a profound impact. Nezu clears his throat. Unfortunately for us, it might be extremely difficult to find Izuku. Toshinori. What do you mean it might be difficult to find him? He's still just a child, he couldn't have gone far enough that we can't find him. Inko. Sobs. Toshinori is right, it's not too late yet and it would be easier to find him because he's still a teenager, it would be easy to pick up a trail. Nezu. Sighs, this should have been expected, you know nothing about him. While looking at mom and dad, Uncle Nezu continued explaining. Nezu. You see, that boy can be described as a genius. His analytical and observational skills are unparalleled, and I imagine his academic abilities are always top-notch. Katsuki. Deku's academic performance is always below average. There's no way he's as smart as you make him out to be. As soon as he said that, everyone in the room stared at him, except for his sister. Some more than others, since this was the first time the adults had heard the nickname, Deku. After Katsuki blurted that out, his parents immediately apologized for their behavior. Then they dragged the Bakugo twins to another room in the house while vigorously apologizing and bowing deeply, to which everyone responded by saying that they shouldn't apologize and that it was the Bakugo twins who should apologize to Izuku. Once the Bakugo twins left and their parents returned, Uncle Nezu began to speak again. Nezu. Did the teachers dislike Izuku too? Izumi. Shoto. Shoto. Yes, they did. Shoka. He was discriminated against because he didn't have a quirk and his grades dropped. Izumi. They also overlooked the fact that Izuku gets bullied when the Todoroki twins or I aren't around. Shoto. They always make excuses whenever we complain. Nezu. I see, then they will receive the appropriate punishment, right, Detective Tsukauchi? Tsukauchi. Yes, they will. Just like Toshinori and Inko. Nezu. Unfortunately, I doubt any of you will spend time in jail because of the Hero Commission. Gran Torino. Growls, I do not approve of this. Toshinori and his wife should be properly punished for neglecting their son, and I don't want the Hero Commission to stand in the way of what they deserve. Nezu. It's a shame, but you can't allow the symbol of peace to be imprisoned. However, I'll ask you to have these two perform community service under the guise of encouraging others to do the same. Gran Torino. Sighs, it's not what I expected, but so be it. Nezu. Anyway, about Izuku, I highly doubt he's careless enough to leave any traces when he left, but there's someone here who might know his whereabouts. Isn't that right, Izumi? Everyone in the room instantly turned to me. I was sweating profusely because I had suddenly become the center of attention. I took a deep breath and answered my uncle's question. Izumi. I don't know where Izuku could have gone, dude. Aizawa. Are you sure, Izumi? Any scrap of information you might have could be useful in our search. Izumi. I'm sorry. I apologized while avoiding eye contact. I could feel the suspicious glances Uncle Nezu and Uncle Shota were giving me as we finished our conversation. After a while, everyone started to leave and I was talking with Uncle Nezu, Uncle Shota and Detective Tsukauchi outside, where my parents couldn't hear us. Aizawa. So, why did you lie before, Izumi? Taking a deep breath, I replied. Izumi. Let me explain. I told them the truth because we need these 3 people to know in order to get their help in getting rid of my parents' rights over Izuku. Izumi. Everything is going according to plan. Izuku's point of view. Izuku. Arg. Damn it. Gilgamesh. Laughs, rejoice. Izuku, your skills have improved. Izuku. Laughs, thank you very much. Grabbing his outstretched hand, I got up from the ground. In a grassy field, Gilgamesh was training me, rather roughly if I may add. My training consisted of learning how to open the gates of Babylon wider, which means opening more doors, and learning a little swordsmanship from Artoria with Anastasia. Although, I don't train in that area as much as she does. The field where we were training is deserted. It's a bit far from the city, so Gilgamesh and I wouldn't have to worry about damaging buildings and such. We always came here early in the morning in a vehicle that Gilgamesh called Vimana. Izuku. As always, thank you for training me, Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh. Laughs, I accept your gratitude. Come, let's go back. The sun has almost set and Anastasia needs help preparing dinner. Izuku. Right, I need to help her, otherwise we might not have enough for dinner because of Artoria. Gilgamesh wore an amused expression as soon as those words left my mouth. Then he opened a door and stepped out of the Vimana. We boarded the enormous plane and flew toward Musudafu. I was gripping the throne tightly because it's the only seat in the Vimana, and Gilgamesh needed to sit on it to control the aircraft. 6 months had passed since I left my old home and went to live with the Pendragons. When I left, I heard from Izumi that everything had gone according to plan, and that the parental rights All Might and Green Tempest had over me had been terminated. For the past 6 months, I've inherited Gilgamesh's noble phantasm, the Gate of Babylon, to help me achieve my dream of becoming a hero. When I first obtained this power, I struggled to use it. I often fired weapons too slowly or opened the gate in the wrong place at the wrong time. However, thanks to Gilgamesh, I've been improving. After inheriting the Gate of Babylon, my appearance also changed to resemble a much younger version of Gilgamesh. While we were in the beautiful sky and the dim light of the setting sun, which tinted the sky with a beautiful purple hue, enveloped us, I decided to ask a question to the person I had come to see as a father while using a polite tone. Izuku. Hello Gilgamesh, I have a question. Gilgamesh. Very well, what is it? Izuku. This is the Gate of Babylon. You mentioned that the treasure has the original prototype form of each noble phantasm, as well as weapons that weren't made by human hands like Excalibur, right? Gilgamesh. Yes, that's correct. What about it? Izuku. Well, instead of just using the gate to launch weapons, wouldn't it be better to look through the treasure and use a noble phantasm that counters my opponents? Gilgamesh. Yes, that would be better. Izuku. Then, Gilgamesh. However, it would be impossible for you to do so. Izuku. Why is that, Gilgamesh? It's because your brain simply cannot process all the information. Our treasure is infinite. Gilgamesh. Searching our treasure for any particular noble phantasm in the middle of a battle would kill you. Gilgamesh. Instead, I suggest you check our treasure while you have time, like before you go to sleep. Izuku. Looking for what? Gilgamesh. For any noble phantasm that catches your eye. You could compile a list of some of the best noble phantasms to use for their unique abilities. Izuku. I see, that's a good idea, but can I do it that way? You said that examining the treasure in the middle of a battle would kill me. Gilgamesh. Not if you memorize the name, ability, and appearance of the noble phantasm you want to use. Izuku. I understand, I'll make a list of the best noble phantasms I can find. But, can you look through the treasure in the middle of a battle? Gilgamesh. Yes, I can. Izuku. But you choose not to. Gilgamesh. Yes, That's because I find my current fighting style more enjoyable. Also, I was summoned as an archer during the Holy Grail War, so I have more advantages this way, like a sword being better in close combat. Izuku. Thank you so much for giving me more advice, Father Gilgamesh. Izuku. Damn it, why did I say that? He raised an eyebrow at my sudden use of the word because it had been a long time since I'd last stuttered. Embarrassed, I glanced down below us and saw the twinkling lights of Musudafu. In the distance, I saw the large building where I was currently staying. When I looked back at Gilgamesh, he seemed to be contemplating something as he stared directly at me. Izuku. Is there anything you need? Gilgamesh. Nada, he said, looking away as we approached our destination. Third-person point of view. Anastasia. Hey Izuku, which one is better? This one, or this one? Izuku. You'd look good in anything. In the Pendragon family's attic guest bedroom, Izuku and Anastasia are preparing for a formal party the Hero Commission is throwing for the retirement of the now former number 3 hero, Artoria. The successors to the King of Heroes and the King of Knights are currently in Izuku's bedroom. The Pendragon attic has 5 rooms, including the master bedroom, which Artoria and Gilgamesh share. Anastasia is currently in Izuku's room, asking which dress suits him best. It didn't surprise him that Anastasia barged into his room and continued choosing his clothes. This is because she often goes there to complain about her training with Izuku. Izuku himself sometimes barges into her room to do the same. Izuku and Anastasia complain to each other about how well they listen and about the unreasonable demands Artoria and Gilgamesh make of them, such as jumping off a cliff and using Excalibur's wind magic to land safely. Complaining to each other also strengthened their bond, even if they argued sometimes. If a stranger saw them together, they'd probably think they were a couple, but they weren't officially a couple yet. Despite their grumbling, they both knew this was an opportunity every quirkless person would kill for, so they made sure to always show gratitude to the people who took them in, if you take away the occasional roasts and teasing Anastasia directs at Gilgamesh. Anastasia. Ah, thanks Izuku. But I don't see you as a man. At least not yet. Izuku. Yes, I know. I was just stating the facts. Anastasia. Well, then, thank you for the compliment. You'd look good in anything too. Izuku. Thanks for the compliment too. Anastasia. Aw man, if that was you from 6 months ago, you'd be as red as a tomato now just from that. With a slight pout, she complained to Izuku about his lack of reaction, knowing he shouldn't fall for Anastasia's teasing. Izuku stopped peering through her clothes and looked at Anastasia with a smug grin. As soon as Anastasia saw that smug smile on Izuku's face, she knew it was her turn. Izuku. Laughs. I didn't expect you to want to see me blush so much. Do you really want to see me like this? Putting his right hand in the pocket of his royal blue hoodie while his left rested on his hip, he walked beside Anastasia and whispered in her ear. Izuku. Are you willing to do anything to see that same expression on my face again? Anastasia. Oh, how bold. What if I say yes? Izuku. HMPH. Then do your worst. Anastasia. Is that a challenge, what I heard? Izuku. You can take it however you want. Unbeknownst to them, they were both beetroot red and both resembled a tomato, as Anastasia had said. They remained like that for a few minutes, admiring the beauty of each other's eyes. Their faces were so close that if one of them leaned forward a few inches, they would be kissing. They could feel each other's breath on their faces when Izuku was about to open his mouth to say something, but someone interrupted him. Hit. Izuku. Laughs. I'll open the door, stay here. By the way, you're a beet. Red. Anastasia. HMPH. You too. Izuku. Is that me? Izuku thought as he opened the door, revealing Artoria in her casual attire. She was also carrying a small paper bag. Her outfit consisted of a long-sleeved white-collared shirt with a blue string tie, a knee-length blue skirt with stockings, and her hair loose, showing its length. Izuku then began speaking to Artoria in a polite tone. Artoria. I apologize for bothering you. Izuku. No, please don't apologize. Is there anything you need, Artoria? Artoria. I'm here to give you this. She said this as she handed the paper bag to Izuku. Then she took Artoria's bag and looked inside while Artoria was talking. Artoria. It's your new formal wear that Anastasia and I bought at the mall the other day. Izuku. Really? Thank you so much for this gift, Artoria. Izuku. Really? Thank you so much for this gift, Artoria. She said, smiling brightly. Artoria smiled back at Izuku, and Izuku's shout upon receiving a new gift was no surprise to her. She knew his parents neglected him and, therefore, gave him nothing that would make him even remotely happy. Artoria. Actually, Anastasia was the one who chose those clothes for you. Izuku. Hey, was I now? Anyway, thanks a lot, Artoria, for giving me these clothes. Why were they with you anyway? Artoria. Anastasia mistook them for the clothes I bought. Izuku. I see, that looks a lot like her. Artoria. It's good that you two are so close. Izuku. Laughs, well, I find her very endearing. Artoria. Well, I'll go now and make sure I get ready for the party on time later tonight. Izuku. Noted, I'll make sure to dress and behave appropriately for the occasion. However, I can't say the same for Anastasia. Izuku. Noted, I'll make sure to dress and behave appropriately for the occasion. However, I can't say the same for Anastasia. Artoria nodded in response as Izuku closed the door. Then she started walking down the hall toward the living room. Gilgamesh had come out of the attic earlier and was outside buying some gifts for Artoria's retirement. Although, she didn't know that. Artoria sat down in the living room, picked up the TV remote, and turned it on. As she sat there, she thought about Izuku and Anastasia's situation. Artoria. Izuku and Anastasia. They are both good children, however, their parents neglected them and they suffered hardships due to something they couldn't control. Artoria. If only I could go back and correct my mistakes. If only I could go back and see her again, give her the love and attention she deserves. Artoria. I really was a fool. If I told Izuku and Anastasia about her, they'd probably tease me. Then she got up and went to the kitchen to get some snacks. As she opened one of the cupboards, she felt a wet sensation on her cheek. Once she felt it with her hand, she immediately knew what it was. Tears. Then the dam broke. Artoria began to weep as she fell to her knees. Artoria. Sobbing, I'm so sorry. Even if you can't hear me, I'm so sorry. Artoria. Sobbing, if only I were there for you. Artoria. Sobbing, my greatest regret is no longer not being able to save Britain, but not being a good king and father to you, Mordred. Anastasia. Did you hear that scream? Izuku. Yes, I did. Anastasia. Let's go. As Izuku and Anastasia descended the stairs, the sounds of loud sobs grew louder. Once they reached the kitchen, they saw the person they both admired crying uncontrollably. Anastasia. What, Auntie? What happened to you? Artoria. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm no better than the people who abandoned you. Anastasia. Shish. It's okay, Auntie, it's going to be fine. Please don't say you're not better than my parents because you are the best. Hugging the King of Knights tightly as he knelt on the ground, Anastasia offered him comforting words and gently rubbed circles on his back to soothe him. Izuku, on the other hand, was speechless, unsure how to react, but he quickly recovered and got Artoria some water. Izuku. Artoria, remember that everyone makes mistakes and there are some things we simply cannot undo. Anastasia. You're right, if we can't correct our past mistakes, then we must strive to be better. Izuku. If you have time to dwell on your regrets and self-loathing. Anastasia. So, you have time for self-improvement. With us here, you're going to have a lot more time. Anastasia said as she squeezed Artoria's hand tightly to reassure her that everything would be alright and that they were both there for her. Artoria. Thank you very much, Izuku. Anastasia. I apologize for making you see me in such a sorry state. Anastasia. Please don't worry about it, Auntie, and if you ever want to talk about it, remember that everyone in this house is here for you. Izuku. We won't interfere in your problems because it's painfully obvious that you're not ready to talk about it yet. Artoria. Yes, I'll talk to you and Gil about it when I'm ready. She said, giving them both a bright smile. Her eyes were full of appreciation and love. Third-person point of view. While Izuku, Anastasia, and Artoria were preparing for Artoria's retirement party and awaiting Gilgamesh's arrival at the attic, a major event was taking place elsewhere in the multiverse. In a place far, far away from the world of quirks, we see a group of 4 running up a huge mountain staircase. The group consisted of 2 girls and 2 boys, though one of the boys appeared more feminine than masculine. They seemed to be having a conversation as they ran up the stairs. "Hey Ryder, are you sure you and this idiot can hold off Berserker long enough?" "Hey, don't call me an idiot, Saber. Saber, shut up. I have every right to call you an idiot for almost dying every time you fight and for losing your command seals to Caster. Tasaka, Ryder, and I saved you from Caster, didn't we?" As the group ran up the stairs, the blonde woman with beautiful blue-green eyes, dressed in a thick suit of well-made red and gray armor that concealed her small body, argued with the boy. The boy has reddish-brown hair and golden eyes. He was wearing a plain white and dark blue long-sleeved shirt with blue jeans. He was also wearing a black, white, and gray jacket over the shirt. The other 2 who were with them sweated at their behavior while wearing exasperated expressions. "Saber, whatever, you were lucky you came to save me. It was only because that damn archer betrayed Caster that you were able to save me, Shuru. Not to mention, you'd all be screwed if Caster took control of me. Ha ha ha, she's got you there, Shuru-kun. I'd probably lose to Saber-san in a one-on-one battle." Shuru sighs. "Speaking of which, I thought you were fighting Archer in front of the church along with Sakura and Ryder." Ryder. "Ahem. Well, I was fighting him, but Sakura-chan ordered me to retreat because she said something about seeing through Archer's plan. How's too bad, I was winning the fight too, I had him trapped in my Vulcan. Caligorant and all. Oh, and Rin, Sakura-chan and I still regret letting Archer go only for you to get kidnapped by him. Rin. I already told you, it's fine. None of us knew what Archer was going to do." The other 2 who joined the conversation looked like girls. However, to put it bluntly, one of them is a trap. The royal girl had elegant aquamarine eyes and wavy, dark brown hair tied in twin ponytails with black ribbons, while most of her hair hung loose. She wore a red coat and an orange scarf with a black skirt and black stockings on her otherworldly thighs. On the other hand, the trap has long, pink hair, with some hair accessories, tied in a braid that reaches his waist. In addition, she has a large white cape with fur on top, and her eyes are a beautiful shade of purple. She also wears elegant-looking armor, the kind that girls would normally wear. Saber. Well, Ryder, can you and Shuru hold off Berserker long enough for me to destroy the stupid Grail? Ryder. Don't worry, since Shuru-kun is my new master after Sakura-chan transferred her command seals to him, our teamwork will be wonderful. Shuru. Ryder, I don't think so. Our teamwork wouldn't improve just because I'm your new teacher. Ryder. Ha ha ha, don't worry about small things, Shuru-kun. Rin. Remember Ryder and Shuru, their only job is to keep Berserker away long enough for him to extract Ilya and for Saber to destroy the Holy Grail. Do not try to fight him head-on, keep your distance. Rin. Sighs. That fake priest, Hire, only had to turn the Holy Grail into a great killing machine and corrupt Berserker. Lancer has my eternal gratitude for killing him and Shinji. That bastard Shinji deserved it for trying to force himself on my sister. Fortunately, Ryder saved her in time. He thought this while a grim and angry expression crossed his face. At this point, the group was halfway up the mountain as the light of the full moon illuminated their path. Ryder. Yes, we have it, but, can you destroy the Holy Grail, Saber-san? Saber. Hey, there's no way I can't. Sighs. Besides, I don't care about my wish anymore. He once said that his companions instantly had a confused expression, excluding Ryder since he didn't know what Saber's wish was. Rin. Really? You don't want to challenge the selection sword? Shuru. Why, Saber? Knowing. It's because of you, of course. Shuru. Me, Saber. Even if you were the worst of the worst when it comes to masters, you helped me realize how I truly feel about my desire, and my father. For that, I am grateful. Shuru. Oh, smiles. I'm honored. Saber. Laughs, just like you should be. Good luck with Berserker. Rin. Sighs, to think that Berserker is protecting the Holy Grail even while it's corrupted by that fake priest. Suddenly, they heard a roar coming from the right side of the mountain. The group immediately recognized the sound as Berserker. They stopped running up the stairs when Shuru spotted a path where he and Ryder could head toward the source of the roar. Shuru. I suppose this is where we part ways. Saber. Rin, make sure you destroy the Holy Grail. Saber. Yes, leave that damn thing to us. Rin. Shuru. Don't you dare die, understand? Shuru. You too, Tasaka, please don't die. Ryder. Clears his throat, as lovely as it was to see their love for each other blossom. The moment those words left her mouth, Saber immediately burst out laughing. Rin, on the other hand, blushed furiously, to the point where her ears were also red. However, Shuru seemed unfazed by Ryder's comment, simply accepting it, though he was also a little embarrassed, even if you couldn't tell just by looking at his face. Ryder. Rin-chan, could you say goodbye to Sakura-chan once this battle is over and she's recovered? Rin. Ahem. Don't worry, Ryder, I'll tell him once he wakes up. Ryder. Thank you, Rin-chan, for taking care of her. With Shinji and her recently deceased grandfather gone, thanks to the surgery, I hope she can have a happier life from now on. Rin. Ahem. Don't worry, Ryder, I'll tell him once he wakes up. Ryder. Thank you, Rin-chan, for taking care of her. With Shinji and her recently deceased grandfather gone, thanks to the surgery, I hope she can have a happier life from now on. Rin nodded in response and proceeded to hug Ryder to show her gratitude for saving Sakura, Rin's sister. Saber and Shuru also shared a handshake, expressing their mutual thanks and bidding each other farewell. Shuru. Goodbye, Saber. Knowing. Yes, goodbye to you too, as Shuru and Saber said. As he said his goodbyes, Ryder put his thumb and forefinger to his mouth and whistled with his fingers. The whistle had summoned Ryder's mount, a creature known as the hippogriff. The hippogriff had the head of an eagle, its forelegs were eagle talons, and its hind legs were those of a horse. Saber. Wait a minute. If you had used your mount, we could have saved ourselves the trouble of climbing these stairs. Ryder. It can't be helped. Hippogriff can't carry all four of us, especially if one of us is wearing extremely thick armor. Saber. TCH. I could have taken it outside, you know. Ryder. Oh, I forgot about that part. Saber. Grunts, just focus on the mission. Ryder. Yes, this is this and that is that. Mounting his hippogriff, Ryder settled comfortably on his favorite steed as he extended his hand toward Shuru. Before departing with Shuru behind him, Ryder glanced at Saber and said, Ryder. It was an honor to fight alongside you during this Holy Grail War, Mordred Pendragon of Camelot. To know, the honor is mine, Paladin of Charlemagne, Astolfo. After saying goodbye, Ryder, or rather Astolfo, left with Shuru to hopefully distract Berserker long enough for Rin to get Ilya out and for Mordred to hopefully destroy the Holy Grail using his noble phantasm. Once Astolfo left with Shuru, Mordred continued up the mountain with Rin. However, when the pair reached the entrance to Ryudo Temple, they could barely see anything due to an unnatural fog surrounding the temple gate. Sensing that something was wrong, Mordred donned his helmet and assumed a protective stance in front of Rin, his sword, Clarent, at the ready. We've been waiting for someone to come up here. It's been very lonely since the person who summoned me, or caster, died. Mordred. It can't be. Assassin. After those words left Mordred's mouth, Rin immediately showed an expression of surprise and a hint of panic on her face. Meanwhile, Mordred was gritting her teeth beneath her helmet, knowing she had fought Assassin before. However, for some reason, she couldn't recall his attack patterns or abilities. Yes, it's us. We didn't have anyone to talk to, but it's good to see you again, Saber. A small figure emerged from the mist at the top of the stairs, in the temple doorway. The figure, identified as Assassin, had the appearance of a girl with white hair and greenish-yellow eyes, her face marked with stitched scars. Her upper body was that of a teenager, while her lower body was more mature, like that of an adult, creating a strange juxtaposition in her appearance. She wore a tattered coat as a cloak over her upper body. N.A. She doesn't see Caster Medea as her mommy, because she's a servant and treats her badly. Someone else will fill that role. Rin. How can this be? Without Caster, you shouldn't be able to stay in this world. Assassin. We are an exception. We are a servant that is anchored to this land where we were summoned. Rin. But still, that's Mordred. Rin, at my signal, I want you to go upstairs as fast as you can and find Ilya. I'll catch up, just let me deal with this brat. The perfect black-haired Tsunere nodded in response and prepared her reinforcement sorcery as Mordred got ready for battle. Mordred decided that ending the fight quickly would be the best course of action, since they didn't know how long Shuru and Ryder would last. To that end, she removed her helmet and prepared to use Clarence power to temporarily disperse the mist so Rin could pass through it. Assassin. We remember from our last fight that you're quite good. I also remember that you're a woman. If that's the case, yes. If that's the case, we can use it. Mordred. What kind of ridiculous nonsense are you spouting? I don't remember our last fight, but that won't stop me from tearing you apart. Assassin. Oh, you don't remember. If that's the case, let us tell you again. Our real name is Jack the Ripper. Rin. This child is actually Satan. Mordred. I see. Even so. Don't underestimate me, you little shit. Mordred screamed while both servants had big smiles on their faces and a battle ensued between the two. Far from the battle, at approximately the same time and in another world, we see our main protagonist, Izuku, wearing formal clothes while looking out of his bedroom window. The clothes he was wearing were custom made for him. He wore a white shirt under his black waistcoat with gold buttons and a red handkerchief in his right breast pocket. With that, he wore an exquisite black tie with gold embroidery, black trousers, and high-gloss black leather boots. Behind him was Anastasia, who wore a rose gold dress with a knee-length skirt and matching heels. She also had beautiful flower earrings and bracelets. Anastasia. Yo, Izuku. It's time to go out. Izuku. Oh, okay. It's time, let's go. Anastasia. What were you thinking? Izuku. Nothing. Just thinking that something important will happen sooner or later. Anastasia. With the retirement party. Izuku. Laughs, maybe, maybe not. By the way, how is Artoria-san? Anastasia. Well, when Uncle Gil returned, they had a one-on-one conversation that calmed her down. I didn't want to force her to go to the party, so I asked if we could cancel it, but she insisted it was fine. Izuku. I see, it seems she's probably forcing herself, but once she makes up her mind, there's no stopping her. Anastasia. Sighs, yes, you're right. I just hope that after his retirement he can finally get some rest. Izuku. Yes, me too. Anastasia. Great, let's go now, the limousine is waiting for us. Grabbing Izuku's hand and intertwining their fingers, Anastasia ran out of the room with Izuku in tow. Izuku couldn't help but notice the way she intertwined their fingers. However, he simply shrugged and ran to keep up with Anastasia. Third-person point of view. On the night of the retirement party, a limousine could be seen on the streets of Musudafu. Its destination was the retirement party of the now former No. 3 hero, Artoria. Inside the car, Izuku, Anastasia, and Artoria were sitting on a luxurious L-shaped sofa, conversing. Izuku. Artoria-san, are you sure you can attend the party? Artoria. For the last time, Izuku, I'm fine. I just remembered some of my regrets, that's all. The King of Knights wore a stunning white gown. He had 3 turquoise ribbons in his hair, on his chest, and at his hip. He also wore an exquisite tiara and white gloves. Artoria. It seems that living among the general population without having to be a king has made me more emotional. Anastasia. Whispers, why do you keep asking that question over and over again? You're the one who said there's no way to stop her once she's made a decision. Izuku. Whispers, I can't help it. Artoria-san is basically like a mother to me, so it's only natural that I worry. Anastasia. Whispers, the same thing happens to me, you know. My aunt has taken care of me since my father abandoned me. Izuku's eyes widened slightly, as this was the first time Anastasia had told him anything about her past. He had never asked about it before because he didn't want to pressure her. Another reason was that he hadn't told anyone else about his past, not even the people he lived with. The conversation between the two stopped there when Izuku sighed and whispered a small apology. However, something was bothering him, so he decided to ask Artoria about it. Izuku. Artoria-san, is Gilgamesh-san coming with us to the party? Artoria. Unfortunately, He's not coming with us. Anastasia. Why is that? Artoria. Well, he told me earlier that he found a lead on a very dangerous villain who knows that Gil and I aren't from this world. Besides the villain, there's only one other person who knows the secrets that Gil and I are keeping hidden. Immediately after the realization occurred to them that others besides themselves knew about Artoria and Gilgamesh's secret, Izuku and Anastasia seemed worried. This was because one of them was apparently a very dangerous villain who could use this knowledge to gain an advantage over the Pendragons. Izuku. Is Gilgamesh-san going to fight that villain alone? Artoria. Yes, probably so. I sincerely wish I could have fought alongside him against that man. However, he insisted I go it alone. Besides, I have faith in my husband's strength. Anastasia. Who is the other person who knows about you? Artoria. The other person who knows about us is a respectable old man named Sorahiko Torino. Izuku. What? Anastasia and Artoria's heads immediately turned toward Izuku, who had accidentally blurted it out. Izuku's expression was one of pure shock and surprise that his grandfather knew the Pendragon's secret. Both girls looked curious because of Izuku's behavior. Artoria. Do you know him? Izuku. Yes, I believe so. He's like a grandfather to me. Artoria. I see. Your grandfather is very kind. He even went so far as to forge my and Gil's ids so the government wouldn't suspect us. Izuku. It sounds like something I would only do for the people I consider most trustworthy. Artoria. I am honored. Anastasia. Ahem. Moving on, do you know the villain's name, Auntie? Artoria. Yes, I know. The villain's name is All for One. Gilgamesh's point of view. It was the night of my fiancé's retirement party when I entered a building looking for someone, more specifically, All for One. Once I entered the unpleasant building, I immediately began searching for the mixed-breed man and his filthy dogs. After a few minutes, I found a set of stairs leading down to the basement. I then proceeded to enter the cellar as the sound of my footsteps echoed. Upon reaching a large door, I opened it without hesitation. Gilgamesh. Well, well, well. You all look as pathetic as ever. All for One, Kurogiri. AFO. King of Heroes. To what do I owe the pleasure of this visit? The sight that greeted me once I opened the doors was All for One, who appeared to be on life support and dressed in formal attire. With him were the black mist I know as Kurogiri and an unknown boy. Master, who the hell is this guy? Kurogiri. Tamura Shigaraki, this man is known as the King of Heroes, Gilgamesh. Shigaraki. King of Heroes. Ha, don't make me laugh. There's no such thing as Gilgamesh. Silence, you repulsive half-breed. As I said those words, I launched an attack at the grayish-blue-haired boy with a severed hand on his face. Before my sword could reach him, All for One blocked it. AFO. Unfortunately, I cannot let you kill my apprentice, King of Heroes. Shigaraki. Master. AFO. I was supposed to go to one of my other hideouts, but if you insist on fighting, so be it. Gilgamesh. I still haven't forgotten that you tried to capture my wife and me years ago to turn us into your weapons. Gilgamesh. To try to turn not one, but two kings into your weapons is absolutely unforgivable. I'll have your head, All for One. Dozens of doors began to appear behind me. I could feel fear and panic emanating from All for One and his apprentice. However, before I could begin my attack, All for One suddenly started laughing. Gilgamesh. What's so funny about looking death in the face, you half-breed? AFO. Laughs. The funny thing is, you thought I was going to fight you alone. I'm not foolish enough to fight a battle that isn't in my favor. Kurogiri. Bring those two here, Kurogiri. Very well. Black mist then began to form around a warp gate. Two figures emerged and started walking this way from the other side. I could hear the clanking of metal, indicating that they were wearing armor. They were also emitting an all too familiar aura. Once I could finally see and identify what they were, I was dumbfounded. Gilgamesh. How do you have control over them? AFO. Why, with multiple hypnosis and brainwashing quirks, and with these, of course. He raised his hand, and I saw the red markings on it that signify one's identity as a master. I regained my composure and adopted a stoic expression as I analyzed the situation. Gilgamesh. Seals of command. I glanced at All for One's two servants. One of them was a servant I had fought long ago, Berserker. He was still the same as always, clad in full black armor and constantly surrounded by a black mist. Looking at the other servant, I froze. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. However, I quickly snapped back to reality once I processed the situation. Gilgamesh. That second servant must be a product of that cursed grail. The servant then went to her master's side. She looked just like her, yet so different. Her skin was paler, and her eyes were golden. The armor she wore was almost identical to the original, but black with red accents, and her sword was very different from the original. Not only in its appearance, but also in the sense of dread it inspired. Gilgamesh. An alternate version of Artoria. Salter. Master, are you alright? AFO. Yes, I haven't been injured. The fake one then looked at me and narrowed her eyes. I glared back at her, still on guard in case Berserker made any sudden move. AFO. You and your wife have been a thorn in my side for far too long, King of Heroes. Saber. Berserker. I want you to capture this one so I can finally make him my weapon. Salter. Consider it done. Berserker. Grr. Gilgamesh. Clenches his teeth. You damned, detestable creatures. I will annihilate you all. You don't think I'll ever surrender to you, do you? All for one. I screamed at them as I opened the gate of Babylon wider and surrounded the five with my most powerful treasures while my golden armor materialized within my body. The rabid dog and the imposter took their positions as a battle erupted that shook the earth. Izuku's point of view. Izuku. So this is the place. Anastasia. It's so striking. My lovely housemate said, her eyes sparkling. Anastasia, Artoria-san, and I had arrived at the venue for the retreat party. The interior of the building was truly as striking as Anastasia had described. There were many tables, and the whole place was brightly lit by 3 beautiful chandeliers. The people inside consisted of heroes, police officers, hero commission officers, essentially anyone Artoria-san had worked with before. They all stared at the 3 of us as we entered the room. I glanced to my right and saw Anastasia nervously smiling at the crowd. To my left, Artoria-san was giving a small smile and waving. The retirement party began shortly after our arrival. As an officer from the Hero Commission gave a speech, I looked around and saw some familiar faces. Izuku. Uncle Enji, Shoto and Shoka. Well, she's always been a big fan of Artoria-san. I glanced around a bit longer and saw the big jerk I didn't want to see. With an angry expression on my face, I clicked my tongue as I glared in the direction of my former stepfather. Izuku. All Might, I didn't think he'd come here. He never had any kind of relationship with Artoria-san as far as I knew. After the Hero Commission officer's speech, Artoria-san also gave a speech. However, I barely heard her speech since she was casting a gloomy glance in All Might's direction, which didn't go unnoticed by Artoria-san. Once she finished her speech, the party began, and she came over to me as Anastasia started stuffing her cute face with food. Artoria. Izuku, do you want to tell me what that look you gave the no? One hero earlier was about. Izuku. Size, it's complicated, Artoria-san. I guess it's time I told you all about my past. Once we get home, at least. Artoria. Very good, Anastasia. Izuku. Auntie, I may have already eaten some desserts, but there are steaks waiting for us over there. Let's go. Izuku. Laughs, I guess spending too much time with Artoria-san made me appreciate food more. As we headed to the food, we were stopped by the last person I wanted to talk to at this party, All Might. Izumi wasn't with him, probably because she didn't want to spend any more time with him than necessary. All Might. Good afternoon, Artoria. It's been a long time. Artoria. It's been a while, All Might. How are you? Third person point of view. While Gilgamesh and Artoria were dealing with their problems, a great battle had just ended. As a result of that battle, a phenomenon very similar to the one from 10 years ago had occurred again. In a dark alley illuminated by moonlight, a flash of light appeared. Once the light faded, a figure was revealed in the middle of the alley. The figure was one we know as Mordred Pendragon. He still wore his armor and held his sword, but he was not wearing his helmet. Mordred. That son of a bitch, that archer is always bragging. She looked around the unfamiliar terrain and decided to head down one of the streets. Just before reaching the street, she removed her armor, revealing her toned body. All she wore was a white blouse, shorts, and a crimson leather jacket. Mordred. Where the hell am I? The sight that greeted her as she stepped onto the street was beautiful. The street shimmered with multicolored lights. However, something troubled her, the appearance of some people with mutation peculiarities. After a few minutes of walking, she entered a shopping mall. However, before she could enter, she sensed the presence of another servant. As alert as ever, she headed toward the source of the presence. The other servant was just around the corner in another deserted alley. Summoning her armor and sword, she swiftly whirled around and slashed over the other servant's head. What she didn't know, however, was that the other servant was Astolfo. Fortunately, Astolfo was quick enough to dodge, letting out a cry of surprise. Astolfo. Wait, it's me, Ryder. Mordred. What, Ryder? Astolfo. Why yes, it's me, Ryder. Please stop. Mordred stopped abruptly and removed his armor once more, extending his hand to Astolfo, who took it with a nervous smile. He, too, was still wearing his attire and armor. Mordred. Laughs. Sorry. I thought you might be an enemy. Anyway, what's the last thing you remember? Astolfo. The last thing Oh, wait, Shiro-kun might be in danger. Berserker is still out there. He was preparing to run away, but Mordred stopped him with a stoic expression. Mordred. Ryder, I'm sure I destroyed that damned grail, but I don't think we're in Fuyuki anymore. Astolfo. So, where are we? Mordred. I don't know. Astolfo. Let's look around then. Nodding, Mordred and Astolfo prepared to head to the shopping center they had seen earlier. Like Mordred, Astolfo changed into his casual attire to avoid drawing attention. He wore a lavender-striped shirt that exposed his midriff, paired with a lavender and black jacket. He also wore black tights, a black skirt, and lavender shoes. Once they were at the mall, something caught Mordred's eye. It was a news report coming from televisions on display in an electronics store. The televisions showed a picture of Artoria while reporters discussed her retirement. After seeing Artoria's picture on the television, Mordred was in a complete whirlwind of emotions. She was scared, confused, but mostly happy. Mordred. Father. Third-person point of view. Izuku. Great. Just great. Izuku was very annoyed by his situation. He wanted to spend the party celebrating Artoria's retirement and seeing how the Todoroki twins were doing, since he knew Endeavor would receive an invitation and they would most likely come. His prediction was mostly correct. However, he didn't think All Might, of all people, would come, since the number 1 and number 3 heroes had never interacted in public. All Might. I'm very well, Artoria. I'm here to thank you for everything you've done during your time as a hero. Artoria. Thank you, All Might. Receiving praise from the symbol of peace himself, I am honored. All Might. Ha ha ha, the honor is mine. WHO are these two. He said this while pointing at Izuku and Anastasia. Izuku had an apathetic expression in response to being noticed by the symbol of peace. On the other hand, Anastasia was only mildly happy, judging by the small smile on her face, since she was never a big fan of All Might. Anastasia. Nice to meet you, I'm Anastasia Fujiwara. I suppose you can consider me Auntie's apprentice. All Might. Oh, your apprentice, huh, you seem like a fine young lady. I'm sure you'll be a great hero in the future. Anastasia. Thank you very much. All Might. And you, young man. Izuku. My name is Izuku. Damn it, what do I say? I can't tell her my real last name. Izuku. Pendragon. Izuku Pendragon, the son. The three with him widened their eyes at Izuku's response. All Might turned his head toward Artoria to confirm it. However, she was still frozen by what Izuku had said. Before All Might could ask Artoria any questions, Izuku gave her a look that said, just play along. She nodded slightly in response, not arousing All Might's suspicion. All Might, is it true? It's very surprising to hear that you have a child, Artoria. Artoria. Yes, Izuku is my son. All Might. I see. But still, Izuku, huh? She adopted a thoughtful pose as the wide smile on her face faded. Artoria noticed this and quickly connected the dots. Izuku's expression during his speech, lying about his surname, and All Might's reaction to the name, Izuku. Meanwhile, Anastasia was also suspicious of Izuku and All Might's behavior. She wasn't stupid. Far from it, in fact. She knew something was going on, but she didn't have enough information to reach a proper conclusion. Izuku. Huh, you know someone named Izuku? Placing his right hand on his chin and his left on his hip, Izuku asked All Might a question with a mischievous grin. Amusement was also evident in his eyes. Artoria recognized his expression as the one Gilgamesh uses when toying with his opponents. All Might. Why yes, my son's name is Izuku. I also have a daughter named Izumi. They're twins. Izuku. You have no right to claim to be my father. Izuku. I see. That's natural. You've been happily married to Green Tempest for over 2 decades. Are you the same age as us? We're 15. All Might. Why are they? My daughter is ready to attend UA, but I'm not sure if my son wants to attend UA. Izuku. You're the #1 hero. You must be a good father, so I'm not sure why your son would hesitate. Well, if he does attend, could you tell me about him? What's he like? What are his hobbies? Or what does he like? She was clearly enjoying the look of panic and guilt on All Might's face. Beads of sweat formed on the #1 hero's forehead as he struggled to find an answer. At this point, Anastasia realized what was happening. She glanced at Izuku, then at All Might, and sighed in disappointment. Anastasia. I see. That's right. Another fake. It's a shame it was the symbol of peace. I can't blame Izuku for doing this. All Might. His hobbies are, cough cough. Endeavor. What's going on here? All Might, Artoria. Just before All Might could respond, Endeavor approached them with a drink in his hand. He was still wearing his hero costume, as were all the other heroes at the party. With him was Shoto, who wore a light blue shirt with a white tuxedo, a red tie, and white trousers. Alongside Shoto was Shoka, who wore a red one-piece dress with blue embroidery featuring a dragon design. Shoka's attention was entirely focused on Artoria, as she had always been a huge fan of hers. All Might. Effort. I apologize, young Pendragon, but I must cough cough ** go. I hope to see you at UA. Endeavor. Idiot, you just revealed you'll be working at UA. All Might said, giving Endeavor a small signal, indicating that his time limit had expired. Endeavor shrugged and nodded in response as All Might left. Izuku's smile transformed into a genuine grin the moment he saw his 2 childhood friends and his uncle. Endeavor. Clears his throat. Artoria, I came to congratulate you on your retirement. Artoria. Thank you very much, Endeavor. It was a pleasure working with you on multiple occasions. Endeavor. The pleasure is all mine. I'd like you to meet 2 of my children, twins. These are Shoto and Shoka. Pointing to the twins, they gave small smiles as Shoto shook Artoria's hand, whispering a soft, nice to meet you. In contrast, Shoka shook his hand while fangirling loudly. She kept asking questions about his sword, quirk, and other things. Her father told her to stop after a few questions. Then he left, along with Artoria, to greet other guests like Hawks, the No.4 hero, leaving Izuku and Anastasia alone with the Todoroki twins. Shoka. Damn it, I just shook hands with Artoria-san. Shoto. Détente. Anastasia. Clears her throat. Nice to meet you all, I'm Anastasia Fujiwara. This is Izuku Pendragon. Izuku. Nice to meet you. Izuku. I'm glad to see you're doing well. Shoto. It's a pleasure to meet you too. I'm Shoto Todoroki and this is my sister, Shoka. Axe. Yuhu. Anastasia. Do you want to go to a table? I want to try those steaks over there. Shoka. Of course, let's go. Gilgamesh's point of view. Gilgamesh. TCH. What an annoying situation, I said as I dodged another wave of black energy from the fake while leaping onto a building. I glanced around quickly and saw the ruined surroundings. Only a few minutes had passed since our battle began, yet I was no closer to killing all for one. Kurogiri and the half-breed, Shigaraki, had retreated shortly after the battle started. The rabid dog lunged at me, a black and red stick in its hand, as I stood high above the building below. Reacting quickly, I grabbed a short sword from my door and slashed at Berserker while he was still airborne. The blade missed him, but due to the sword's power, Berserker was frozen solid. Gilgamesh. Rabid dog. All for one fired another air cannon in my direction, but I dodged it once again and dropped the building to come face to face with Artoria Alter. I swiftly grabbed a golden sword from the gate of Babylon and clashed blades with hers. We remained at a standstill as sparks flew from the impact, neither of us letting up. I seized the opportunity to launch a point-blank attack. 3 gates with massive spears surrounded her, aimed at her head, heart, and abdomen. She reacted quickly when she moved away from me, redirecting the spear aimed at her head to strike the one aimed at her abdomen. I thought the latter would hit her heart, but she skillfully maneuvered out of the way so the spear only grazed her left shoulder. Seizing the opportunity, I lunged at her, intending to kill her, but Berserker managed to arrive in time to save her by striking my right arm with her metal bar. Gilgamesh. For an odd combination, their teamwork is flawless. I was flung back dozens of meters as I prepared to launch another attack. However, I immediately realized that All for One was behind me, withdrawing his deformed arm from the multitude of quirks he was using. My body unconsciously summoned a large shield at my side to block All for One's attack. The shield held its ground as I sent a barrage of swords and spears flying at him at close range. I managed to severely damage All for One's right arm and left leg as he retreated backwards. Before any more of my weapons could reach All for One, Berserker reached his side and seized a greatsword, transforming it into his noble phantasm. He then began parrying my attacks to ensure All for One's safety. As Berserker defended against my attacks, Artoria Alter appeared to my left and unleashed a dark magenta beam toward me. I swiftly invoked the true name of the shield I still held in my hands in response to her attack. Gilgamesh. Lord Camelot. Salter. That shield. The silhouette of the castle's enormous blue walls materialized and surrounded me. It was enough to stop Artoria's Alter attack. Then it went to All for One's side to check on his injuries while Berserker assumed a protective stance in front of them. Artoria Alter then began talking to All for One, but I could still hear them speaking even from a distance. I could also see Kurogiri arriving at All for One's side. Salter. Master, it would be wise to retreat for now. Even with your regeneration quirks, your wounds are too deep to heal during battle. If you were to collapse from blood loss, it would result in our defeat. Kurogiri. I agree. AFO. So even the 3 of us aren't enough to defeat you, King of Heroes. In response to that ridiculous question, I simply laughed. All for One and his subordinates just stared at me in disbelief. Gilgamesh. Of course, these 2 alone aren't enough. If I hadn't taken this fight seriously, the 3 of you might have stood a chance. Unfortunately for you, I have a good reason not to hold back. AFO. Huh. And what reason could that be? Gilgamesh. I know how pathetic you are. Always refusing to die, escaping at the last moment using that half-breed, Kurogiri. AFO. Is that your only reason? Are you sure that what you're doing right now isn't for your family? My face registered a slight surprise at the mention of my family. I quickly adopted a stoic expression, along with a withering glare, as my smile vanished and I responded in an angry voice, having a premonition of what All for One was about to say. Gilgamesh. What does my wife have to do with this? AFO. Don't play dumb now, King of Heroes. She's not just your wife. That peach-haired girl who lives with you, your wife is her legal guardian, right? Gilgamesh. How do you know that? AFO. Laughs. I have my methods. There's also that guy who looks like you. According to my sources, it seems you have a close relationship with that guy. Gilgamesh. All for One, choose your next words carefully. He might make an extra effort after killing you and going after your apprentice. AFO. Your threats mean nothing to me. You only discovered my location by chance. Gilgamesh. If you or any of your subordinates touch my treasures, I will personally throw you into the underworld. AFO. Oh. So they're your treasures. Gilgamesh. Not all treasures are silver and gold, half-breed. AFO. Sighs, it's a shame we have to retreat. However, before I go, I want to see you on the ground. Saber. Use your noble phantasm at full power, now. Salter. Very well. She took a deep breath as she began gathering magical energy to use her noble phantasm. Sensing the danger of Artoria Alter's noble phantasm, I wore a frustrated expression as I drew my own, larger noble phantasm from the gate of Babylon, as it was the only one that could match hers. I gripped the familiar sword in my right hand. It was shaped like a drill-like cylindrical pillar composed of 3 independently rotating segments engraved with crimson cuneiform script, with a golden hilt and a handguard adorned with blue designs. Gilgamesh. It's good that Artoria's retirement party is in another city. Gilgamesh. I'll do this final blow as a parting gift for you. Psalter. Cry. It's time for you to break down. Gilgamesh. I'll tell you the beginning. Heaven and earth separated, nothingness congratulated creation, my sword of rupture split the world. Psalter. Vortigern, hammer of the vile king, reverses the rising sun. Swallows the light. Gilgamesh. Mortar of the stars, the hell of heaven is the eve of the celebration of creation. Now you will die and be silent. Psalter. Excalibur. Gilgamesh. Enuma. Psalter. Morgan. Gilgamesh. Elish. As soon as the beams of pure magical energy from our 2 noble phantasms collided, the area around us was transformed into a massive crater. It was a battle between 2 powerful beings in the world of quirks. The surrounding environment became so bright due to the effects of our noble phantasms. The stones on the ground melted as the air heated to an unbearable degree. I could see that our powerful clash of epic proportions was creating a brilliant, multicolored beacon above our heads. It could be seen for miles around. After a few seconds, I could feel my opponent's power waning before it suddenly vanished completely. Quickly halting my attack, I cautiously made my way to the area where Artoria altar had been. The earth's crust around me turned orange and yellow from the unbearable heat emanating from Excalibur Morgan. I walked to the spot where Artoria altar had previously stood, but they weren't there. Gilgamesh. Damn it, they escaped. That's why altar's presence suddenly disappeared along with berserkers. Releasing my frustrations, I punched the ground, resulting in a smaller crater. Finally, I calmed down and decided to return. Summoning my Vimana, I sat on its throne and rode back home. Third-person point of view. Anastasia. Goodbye, goodbye. Shoka-san. Shoto-kun. Shoka. Goodbye, Fujiwara-san and Pendragon-kun. I'll see you at UA. Shoto. Goodbye. It was nice spending time with you too. Back at the retreat party, the Todoroki family was getting ready to leave as the children said their goodbyes at the building's entrance. Artoria was still inside talking to some Hero Commission officials while Endeavor went to get his car. Anastasia then went back inside to find Artoria so they could leave as well. Izuku. Shoto-kun, I'd like to talk to you about something. Shoto. Yes, sure. Shoka. You can go ahead. Shoka. Sure, I'll leave you guys. Then he went to Endeavor's car while Izuku stared at Shoto with a very serious expression. He was confused about the sudden change in mood, since Izuku had been smiling all night. Izuku. Shoto, I'd like you to promise me something. He said this while placing his right hand on Shoto's left shoulder, looking him directly in the eyes. Shoto, on the other hand, was surprised by Izuku's change in tone and the lack of honorifics when addressing him. So he assumed the matter was serious. Izuku. Please tell Izumi to take care of herself. Her older brother cares about her. She might be putting too much pressure on herself with One for All. Shoto. What? To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and please hype this video. Now we will see you in the next video.